Whoa, boy, my favorite professor, quote unquote professor. Professor Jiang, our favoriteest conspiratorial boy who thinks that wealth stratification works like the infinite Tsukiyomi for some reason. Don't ask any questions. It's obviously about as silly and ridiculous as it sounds. I came across this video because of the interview that Professor Jung had with Mehdi Hassan, and Mehdi Hassan mentioned this video called Dawn of the Jews. And I instantaneously became curious, because if you know anything about Professor Jung, that boy is anti-Semitic. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. That boy anti-Semitic, right? Loves spreading conspiratorial theories about Jews all the time. And I mean all the fucking time in all of his fucking analysis. Whenever he talks about secret societies, he means Jewish people. Whenever he talks about anything in terms of history or religion, it's about Jewish people. He is a very, very conspiratorial sort of crank. So I have Boy Meets Mini here because from what I understand, he based a lot of his source material off of the Bible. So we have our Christian correspondent returning with us. How's it going, Boy Meets Mini?
Good to be back for round two, Daho. And for those who may not know, I'm Boy Meets Mini. Christianity is not the only thing I do on my stream. I do talk about it, but I've been a Christian pretty much my whole life, mostly Protestant background. I'm more of a liberation Christian now, more of a lefty liberation Christian. Some would say he's a fake Christian. He's a fake one.
Not real, folks. He's not real.
Not a real one. You know, I'm like the Pope. I'm a fake one. JD Vance called me out.
He's fucking woke, folks. Woke Pope.
So woke, yeah.
So woke.
I'm so woke I don't sleep. We're going to specifically we're going to talk about this topic of the origin of the Jewish people and where they came from, and obviously clear up any misconceptions that
Jungle definitely
I'm expecting him to have. And I don't consider him a real professor. He isn't. As you can see here, got the Bible up. We've got some history up. So we're gonna bring up all the facts for all of you. So, and last time we did this, it was I had a lot of fun in the comments section. So I look forward to that again.
For sure. Anywho, how about we get started?
All right, here we go.
10 more classes left in the lecture series.
We're probably going to want to speed this up.
In these 10 classes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how the American Empire will fall, and I'll show you that what will replace the American Empire is Israel, what we call Pax Judaica. So for these next 10 classes, we will do an overview. Show you why history will lead ultimately to.
I just want to do a quick blurb specifically on Pax Judaica. So he's basing that off of specifically Pax Romana. Pax Romana was essentially, it's Latin for Roman peace. Essentially, Pax Romana was the idea that the Roman Empire used, that they were being the civilizing forces to these unwashed hordes of barbarian masses. Yada, yada, yada. Very, very fucking simple. So it's I guess Jung is essentially like applying that exact same sort of concept to Israel as well.
Cool. All right, we're all good. Okay. Sorry, I was checking my levels. Okay, so it's his own, crackpot conspiracy theory, I guess, or he must have got it from some other like alternate history freaks.
Greater Israel Project, is it? Can it like be analogized to that? I mean, sure, probably, but like, it's like a one-to-one sort of comparison? No, not really.
No, not really. All right. What else do you have, Professor, quote unquote?
Okay. All right, so let's do some questions from YouTube that my wife has picked out. She reads all the comments. She loves reading the comments, and she sends comments to me to reply to. Okay, so the first comment is,
my wife.
How do we restore our right hemisphere, or how do we become more creative? And the answer is that you have to reject materialism. That's the only way. Okay, you have to reject money, you have to reject power, you have to reject materialism in order to embrace your creativity and your right hemisphere. As a society,
is this why he thinks he's like on the left, because he says shit like reject materialism? Buddy, you don't like we've watched the video about you talking about fucking Marxism. You don't even know even the most basic of fucking tenets of Marxism, buddy. You think that Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher essentially cast the infinite Tsukiyomi of consumerist debt slavery to essentially like enslave the entirety of the world through like consumerism, when broadly speaking the whole sort of like idea behind consumerism, that was like something that was like broadly speaking established throughout the 50s and 60s. Like, okay, bro. This Professor Jiang, the best materialist.
I know, yeah, and it's I think what he's confusing it with is, because I mean he obviously cites the Bible here, and this is something a lot of evangelicals get confused on. I find Catholics are a little better on it, especially those who are well read, but evangelicals tend to confuse like leftist materialism with like materialistic living, right? So for example, you know, when you're talking about materialism on the left, you're talking about material conditions, right? When it comes to, say, working class people, marginalized peoples, you know, indigenous people, etc., right? You know, and queer people. But then when you talk about materialistic living, we're talking about hedonism, essentially, right? You know, pursuing endless wealth, how billionaires behave, all that kind of stuff, right? And obviously, you know, not giving back to your community, not doing charity, that kind of thing. Like that's what we mean by materialistic in the religious sort of moral sense, versus materialism in the left, which is studying material conditions of a society. Sorry. So yeah, he's conflating the two, and that's not fun. That's not right, dude.
We live in vivimos en una sociedad.
So true.
Crisis that threatens our very existence for us to come together and for us to be more altruistic and more creative. A possibility is that you really want to activate your right hemisphere, then you fall in love and you have children, or you could.
Oh my god, this is okay.
Wait, what?
You know who actually says this? You know where he's getting this from? I think Steven Pinker. You've probably heard of his crazy concept of effective altruism, and we all know Steven Pinker was on the plane, right? He was on the Express. He was.
I think is in the files. Yep. Pinker.
Yep, all over it.
He's in the files. He's listen, greatest files. Nothing wrong with those files whatsoever.
Yeah, they're millions of pages, so they must be great, right?
That's true. So many pages. And I'm in there a lot of times, which means it has to be fine, folks. That's how it works.
So yeah, anyways, but yeah, this sort of comes from effective altruism, where like Steven Pinker says, okay, what does it mean to live an unselfish life? And you know, he talks about, oh, if you give X% to charity and you have children and all, like he views everything under this realm of like sort of altruism. But the problem is, it's like you're just okay. And then when people press him on this, on this question, he says, well, you know, he doesn't talk about like what charity actually does, because a lot of times what charities do is they're essentially tax havens, right? That's what charities end up becoming. Some
like
charities
that's
do well.
that's the whole meme with philanthropy rather. With philanthropic endeavors, it's all a fucking front for these guys to dodge taxes.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's some good charities, you know, that I support, like, you know, PCRF in Palestine. There's a few like missions and charities in India that I support. You know, I'm a Christian from India originally, and there's a lot of good work being done over there. So, but you got to be careful who you give your money to. So, yeah. So that's basically where he's getting this. Yeah, I love how it's funny how, like, just one last thing about this, how Professor Jiang, you know, I don't know how much has he brought up the files, because I haven't watched too much of his other content because I'm avoiding his brain rot. Has he talked about the files all that much?
He's this video, I think he no, it's a different video. That's on my fucking docket. No
worries. Okay.
He talks about Jeffrey Epstein. And something about like Jeffrey Epstein being related to fucking the Rothschilds or something. Like, you know.
Of course. Like, okay, that.
I don't even know if he's actually related to the Rothschilds.
Who knows? I mean, whatever.
I'm willing to operate under the assumption that Professor Jiang is probably lying.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. Anyways, yeah, but I guess that's what he means by like effective altruism, and obviously this is natalism as well, right? This is where the whole like, you know, be fruitful, multiply, natalism stuff comes from. It's like, oh, the best thing you can do for this world is have more children.
We need to have more children.
Yeah, but I would actually argue maybe not, right? I think there's there's so many children without parents in this world. There's a lot of starvation. In fact, one of the things let me find it. I'll bring it up here. I actually found it in Arun's community, which everybody should follow Arun and know. He's really, really cool.
Shout out.
Shout outs indeed. Let me find the map. Where was it? So I'm gonna pull this up on here. You could probably see that. So
India.
This is where I'm originally from. Now this is a chart of children under 5 who are stunted. So who have less height and other
Not
other
as
issues,
socially developed,
malnutrition.
yada yada.
Not as socially developed, and also children have less mental development as well in these states. So I'm from the northern part of India. Unfortunately, there's a lot of poverty up north, a lot of huge wealth disparity. Some of the biggest in the world are here. States like Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, even the city of Delhi, the second largest city on earth, by the way. Look at this, 30% means 3 in 10 children are stunted. And then if you go to southern India, where they have more social programs and they're a little more lefty down there, and they have more social programs, high literacy rates, education, all that. In Tamil Nadu, Kerala, it's still high. It's still 2 in 10 children, but it's definitely better compared to say some of these states that are really, really impoverished for a number of reasons. The British, the caste system, and there's layers and layers of oppression in this country. So the worst by far, though, this is Meghalaya state. This is over here. This is actually the wettest place on earth. This region that's ready to do a lot of rice growing here in Assam, Meghalaya, and obviously, half of all children, every other child is stunted in that state because there's a lot of poverty and stuff there, and it's mostly agricultural living as well. And obviously, it's near Bangladesh as well. Bangladesh is very, very exploited and stratified society. So. Tamil Naksalamare, stop it. Yeah. And obviously, Daho, you're in you're part of the Liberation Tigers of Toronto Yiram, right?
Yeah, there's probably a group there. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Anyways. But anyways, yeah, but this is like this kind of what I'm showing you here is like I was saying about how like having more children isn't necessarily a good solution because, as you know, India is one of the few like large rich countries that has a growing birth rate. Most other countries have declining birth rates, right? That are like more developed. India, this is a crazy stat. So how many people in Canada? About 40 million, right? Around high 30s, maybe 40 million people.
Better example.
That's how many.
Example. Ceausescu did the exact same thing, and it was a disaster. We had an orphan crisis in Romania for about 30 years. Actually, longer than that, like 60 years. So,
yeah, Ceausescu, if I'm saying, yeah. Ceausescu really, really, yeah. I would assume
he's pretty bad.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if the USSR also kind of created their own, like in Russia, right? There's a huge orphan crisis there as well.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know. I mean, Ceausescu wanted a second baby boom. Basically, which should go without saying why that's really fucking stupid for a lot of reasons. But Ceausescu's a fucking dumbass, so.
Of course, and none of us a tyrant. We hate him.
Yeah, we don't like Ceausescu. Okay, he's a piece of shit. No. He's very dumb for a lot of fucking reasons. But yeah, he was just like, what if I just make another baby boom and we just ban contraceptives and the ability and tried to incentivize people to get pregnant. It failed miserably. Yeah. It went about as well as we expected.
Yeah, and again, Professor Jiang is making the same mistake here. He's saying, "Oh, just give to charity and have more kids." It's like, okay, in India, a new Canada is born every year in India. Just wrap your mind around that. 40 million kids are born every year in India. Yeah, we are, we are, the white natalists here are going to be running scared at that statistic. But yeah, a new Canada is born every single year in India.
God.
In this one country.
So many people.
So we still have a pretty high birth rate. It's starting to level off though. I think as the population gets a little older with time, the demographics are shifting over time. But even like you can see, you're having more children isn't really uplifting your society, is it? It's all the other, socioeconomic factors and policy. That's what's going to really help. And obviously abolishing the caste system, JV. So, I expect to see some Hindutva nationalists get mad in the comments, so I'm ready.
Oh boy. My favorite guys.
Negative 10 out of 10. Do not recommend pull out. Exactly. So anyways, let's continue.
Also choose to volunteer, help other people, be kind and generous to other people, okay? So that's how you activate your right hemisphere. Second question is, do you only give lessons to one class? How's your journey to find some LSD? Okay.
LSD, why? Do we just skip over this part? It sounds like he's just answering questions.
I'm so curious. Wait, hold. No, actually, now I'm curious. Why is Jiang doing LSD?
We'll
Wait, I want to know now. I'm curious.
I mean, fine, he can do it if he wants. Like, I'm
like
it or whatever. Yeah.
I don't want to imagine Professor Jiang on LSD, to be honest.
I don't know. It might help him. It might also go the other direction. It seems like it's gone the other direction.
We don't even know if he's on LSD. I'm going to be honest.
We don't. Wait, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, let's just keep going.
So
let's see.
I'm going to be teaching one lecture series, but 3 different sections, okay? LSD, psychedelics, I'm very interested in psychedelics. I myself do not want to partake in psychedelics because I don't really understand why
You're very interested, but you don't want to partake. Okay, I
guess he just wants to like read about him a little bit. Okay, sure, whatever.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I also the only ones I've partaken in are like edibles, like nothing crazy. You're talking like 50 milligrams, which is still a lot. I'm a lightweight, so but yeah, that's the most I've ever done.
I read a lot of books. I practice a very altruistic lifestyle, and therefore I don't feel as though I need psychedelics to break out of this materialistic world. Okay, I'm already connected to the divine. So yeah. Okay.
All right, man.
Okay.
He's opened up. Yeah, he's opened up his third eye. The Rene Sharingan.
His chakras are perfectly
his chakras
aligned,
are perfectly aligned.
Yep, that third eye shooting out like a railgun laser.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's also. I actually, Alex, here in Twitch chat, you bring up a good point. I've seen people send me Professor Jiang videos saying, "Hey, this guy's a professor and stuff." I'm like, no, this is an act. There are no students. This is not a classroom. This is his living room. People don't know that. They don't know that this is an act.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
there's
so easily fooled.
Yeah, there's some instances where it looks like, but I guarantee you, those guys are probably paid actors.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be for real.
If there's like, I don't know, has there ever been like another like person talking in his videos, like asking a question from? Like,
there have been,
yes. Camera? Oh, okay.
There have been, but I still think I think it's still a fucking act. It's a show. Mm-hmm. It's a performance.
Yep, 1000%. So keep that in mind. Don't be fooled.
Let's move on. All right, some more questions. Could you make a video on how to understand history without biased? And a response is, first of all, it's impossible to be unbiased, okay? And that is correct. We're all.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
He suggests that you have to look at documents and try to be really critical when you analyze documents, and that's correct as well, okay? The problem is that often we don't have documentation, or we have documentation from only one source, so it's very hard to do.
No, you have documentation from lots of sources, dude. You just do.
The problem. Yeah, the problem.
How lazy is.
Yeah, no. The problem is that your sources are dog shit. Like you're doing like alt history, random dumb fuckery, or like
that's
you
all
just
he's
reference
got.
The Bible or something.
He's not referencing interpretations. He's not.
Book of Nemanah? What the fuck? Hebrew Bible? Okay.
Nehemiah. So Ezra and Nehemiah were prophets in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
They were Jewish prophets. But the point is that like he only cites the Bible. He doesn't cite like interpretations. He doesn't cite
no scholars, no theologians whatsoever. You just reference scripture. Like that's not good enough, buddy, because you're not. Yeah. You graduated with a BA in fucking literature, bro. You're not a theologian. Like, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you would, or maybe bring someone on. Like, that would be cool. But of course, he won't do that because if he did, his entire and you're going to see his entire shtick would just fall apart. Yeah, it would just fall apart under the facts. So, we can see why he doesn't bring anyone on ever. You wanted to perform Pink Pony Club, you'll follow him then. Fair.
True.
If he karaoke'd it, probably that would be a follow.
Yeah, we're pink ponying our clubs. Don't ask any questions. Don't worry about it.
So yeah, no, you have to pull from a lot of. I mean, every good Wikipedia article has like hundreds of sources. So no, there are many
Quick, someone
different
tell
sources you could
Destiny.
have pulled from. You're lazy.
Yeah, quick, someone tell Destiny that.
Uh, that dude never listens, anyways. Okay, anyways. Okay. No, there's a lot of sources, professor, quote unquote. Just don't be lazy.
So what I'm trying to do with this class is try to propose a new theory of how to understand history. And if you adopt
Oh
this theory, I
no.
guarantee you that your
So far,
understanding
it's
of history
bad.
will improve, and also your understanding of how the world works will improve as well. So there are three components.
Well, so
to
far
the
it's
history
really
model,
bad.
which I call predictive history. Okay. The first is to understand historical patterns. And so when you try to look at history and the event there, you ask yourself, does this fit into a larger pattern? Or
The problem with doing this now, you could.
Yeah, so
The
like
problem with.
yeah,
Oh, go.
so far like I'm not okay. When because typically I talk about history very, very often. Professor Jiang is not exactly inaccurate where he's when he says this. The problem is as I say myself constantly, history does not tend to repeat, but it likes to rhyme, right? Very, very often, right? Now, I'm not obviously an expert historian. I'm more of like a hobbyist. I like to keep up with history because I just like history, generally speaking. With the thing with like specifically history, and what you need to generally speaking like know is you have to sort of like understand a lot of the conditions and events that have led to certain events sort of like occurring within like historical fucking contexts. The problem is Professor Jung when he does that, like he'll like reference to some stuff, but his like interpretations of it are just like out of complete whack. Like that's the main issue. It's just like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? Like it's just like, oh, schizo, shit, right? And he immediately
Yeah, a
defers
lot
to
of.
like nonsensical conspiracism because a lot of his sources for history come from like weirdo alternative fucking dipshits or something. It seems like from what we've seen
Yeah,
and experienced.
yeah, last time like with Mark Booth and like he constantly blames the Freemasons for stuff and
Yeah, and
you know
secret
the
societies. He loves talking about secret societies.
yeah, and it's like okay, you're not looking into the actual like it's funny because a lot of the Professor Jung supporters will say, oh look, he's talking about economic factors about Iran and the Strait of Hormuz and stuff like that, and it's like
Yeah, so did the
yeah, but if you
Nazis.
yeah, okay, he
Like
might be talking about that, but then he will blame it on a secret society instead of going into the
material
material
analysis.
conditions and the material analysis and also the sort of
A-
geopolitical analysis, right?
AKA the exact same thing far right people do. Which is why far right people like his content. That's why.
Yep. So yeah, that's the problem with this sort of predictive history type thing. The other thing is when you look at patterns as well, like you were talking about rhyming versus repeating, right? It's more of a rhyme rather than repetition. The other problem with patterns is like, okay, for example, with a lot of evangelicals, they will say, well, we need to do another whole crusade. Like they want to do Crusades 2.0,
Hmm.
and they'll point to like patterns back in the Middle Ages and about Persian invasion and all this stuff, and they're like, look, it's happening again, Persian invasion. And I have to explain to them, look, we don't live in a time of empires and sultanates and kings. We live in a time of nation states. The politics are way different than they used to be.
Yep.
So yeah, and so you can't. And also the way our economy works is so different from before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before
It's not
economies were more.
mercantilism, no slave societies. We don't have primitive accumulation anymore. We're not in a
Yep.
mercantilist sort of sense. Feudalism is gone. If we're talking about this in like a purely Marxist sense, yeah, like we live in a like a late stage capitalistic system right now where everything is essentially financialized to the nth degree.
Financialized and globally connected, right? Because now
Mm-hmm.
you have global trade networks of resources from one place to another place that doesn't have as much. Obviously, oil dependence, right? We have a petro market as well
Yeah.
that like is sort of underlying everything, and so it's very different from say the 1300s where it was more about agriculture, right? I mean, it was more about agriculture and of course mining at that time, right? For bronze and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, back then it was very different from today, where it's where you live under the like I said, the framework of late stage capitalism, nation states, and the like. So, it's not the same. But unfortunately, mainly right wingers, even some centrists, I would argue, like centrists mainly pivot right, but they will try to sort of use the past as a framework for today instead of looking at the material like reasons why that thing happened and why something similar might happen today but differently. Right, so they're not. That's where a lot of these centrists and righties miss. So, and game theory, by the way, he's going to go into that, but I'll let him talk about it. But I'll address it quickly here. I also, a lot of people might think I'm just some dumb keyboard warrior on the internet. No, or some stupid gamer. No, I actually, like you, have a computer science and engineering degree, and have worked in tech for a while and understand game theory to a large degree. And basically, a lot of it, game theory also goes into software design and stuff, which I work in software development specifically. So I can tell you what game theory is more about in that space is sort of predictive models for things like, enemy AI in games, for example, or algorithms, how algorithms evolve over time. It's not. It's like he's simplifying game theory to, what is everybody's intention? What is their goal? It's like that's not all
That's
what
not
game
actually how that
theory is.
works.
It's not just about what their motivations are. It's also about, reacting to the current circumstances. For example, an algorithm, say a social media algorithm, like a graph search or whatever, a graph tree algorithm, it will often respond to what you're consuming and then adjust your feed accordingly, right? Sort of that's how all like social media feeds tend to work. They try to correlate like what kind of they try to curate on the fly. So that sort of plays into game theory.
Yep.
And then talking about the culture's religious worldview, again, that last one is a problem because there is no one religious worldview for a particular culture. For example, I will take Tamil culture, for example, right? In southern India, the Tamil people. Tamil people have very differing religious worldviews. You have Muslims, Christians, you have different kinds of Hindus who worship all different deities and have different traditions. But then there's like common cultural traditions in Tamil culture with like, there's certain like festivals that are timed around like growing and harvesting seasons, just like we do in the West, with Thanksgiving, say, for example, in Tamil Nadu, I think the festival is called Pongal because that's when the rice harvest happens. And so and it's not really tied into any particular religion. Everyone celebrates Pongal, and obviously makes the famous dish and stuff like that. So that's an example of like, but that's not like eschatological or religious. That's just sort of culturally over time, that region of the world and those people, just traditionally do that. To say that one culture, one religion, this is a very sort of fascist, sort of, ethno-religious way of looking at the world, which is wrong. It's not fully true. It's kind of like when people right now when people make Iran a monolith and say Iran is like extreme Islam or whatever. And no, if you look at Iran, it's extremely religiously diverse, always has been over the centuries. So there's Jews, Christians, there's all kinds of different Muslims, you got Sufi Islam, which is really liberal and liberation, focused, and more artistic. It's a whole range of people. So I don't like the eschatological way of looking at, countries because it's just inaccurate. Not to mention religious nationalists, which is bad. Yeah.
True.
Anyways, all right. Tell us more, Professor.
Professor Jiang.
Correct. If it doesn't, then there's something wrong here, okay? Second tool is the idea of game theory. And the idea of game theory is to understand that all historical actors are motivated by their interests or worldview. And so are you looking at all different historical actors and are you trying to figure out what their best strategy is, okay? And the third
it's not what game theory is.
I already tore that down, so we'll move on.
A certain religious outlook, religious worldview. You can often find this worldview within their sacred text, for example, the Bible or the Quran, okay?
Now,
so I don't know.
Another problem. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this like eschatological fucking bullshit. From what I understand, it's like the idea of like studying the end of the world, or something, like weird apocalyptic sort
Yeah.
of scenarios. From what I'm broadly speaking understanding, it's very, very weird.
There is also a colonial side to it as well. Because the religious eschatological stuff, it kind of stems from colonialism because the British used to think that, say, indigenous peoples or even the Spaniards thought this way as well. Like when Christopher Columbus first came to the Caribbean, you know, he thought of the Taino people as like, you know, I'm using this word obviously the way he used it, savage, right? He thought of them as savage because they were not Christianized and they had a different religious worldview from that of the West, you know, of the of Western Europe, of the white man essentially, right? So it has a colonial undercurrent as well. It's similar to how when the British came to South Asia, they wanted to impose more Christianity, but then they realized that was a very difficult project in a country, in a region that populated already. You know, there were already hundreds of millions of people in that region at that time in the 1800s. And so what they did instead is like, oh, we'll impose something like it, though. We're going to take your existing caste system and really impose it in a similar way we did against the Irish, you know? So basically, they treated us like they treated Ireland for centuries. And so that's an example of like how religious eschatology gets used against in a colonial context because yeah, the Europeans said, oh, we have a superior religious worldview to the Hindus or to indigenous peoples of, say, the Americas, right? That's it has that undercurrent, and that's the other reason I hate it.
And yeah, just like you're saying, armor and quills. Eschatology only kind of deals with the end of the world. It's more about what happens to souls after that. So, end of the world happens, sort of like hypothetical scenarios into what happens to those souls. Will they be damned to hell, kind of type shit, or whatnot, right? Basically.
Yep.
Okay.
Give you insight to how they perceive history, but also how they want history to eventually develop. So you can understand.
Sure, you're
the strategies
235.
moving forward, okay? All right, and we will look at these three strategies, and we will adapt them for our historical understanding. Okay. All right. Another question is.
Here we go.
Really interesting.
Jewish.
The question is, most of the greats across history were not Jewish.
What do we mean? What do we mean by the greats?
Like great rulers or something, I assume?
Perhaps. Like, I mean, here's the thing. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. In terms of the world population, right? Jewish people have been a very, very small portion of it, right? Right. It's what is the current population of Jewish people in the world? Is it like 15 million, something like that?
Something
15
like
or
that,
16
yeah.
million. The majority are in the Levant, or I'll call it Palestine. The majority are there, or in the U.S. or Europe, right? Like those three main regions, and probably North Africa. So yeah, so yeah, it's like when people say these questions like, oh, most of the great rulers, I mean, it just depends where you're at geographically, like who were the most like, it's just population really, like that's mainly
Right.
it. Like you're not going to find a lot of great rulers from Jewish rulers from, say, South Asia, just simply geographically. Like it's just geography, man. Like you're not going to find a lot of let's say, Mughal, like any like kings or emperors who were Jewish from that region. It's just geography. That's all it is.
Yeah, for sure.
So again, this sort of, and this is where like that conspiratorial thinking comes in, and also the great man theory, which I also don't like that when you say the greats. It's like most of these rulers were just horrible tyrants. Like they weren't people to look up to at all. Like when people look up to Genghis Khan, or I guess in Urdu we actually call him Chengiz Khan, because that was I think that came from the Mongolian language.
Yes, it's
and the
Chinggis
Central Asian
Khan.
language. Yeah, Chengiz Khan.
Genghis
I'm
Khan.
saying properly, because all the Pakistani commenters are gonna say you got it right. But anyways, but yeah, why would you look up to someone like him? Calling him a great. Like if you look at everything he did, he was like one of the worst tyrants to ever live.
Well, listen, he's great because he had a lot of women, so many women, folks, so many beautiful
So
women
true,
from so many
so true.
places. That's why I'm a big fan of Genghis Khan. Let me tell you, folks.
Eric Swalwell could never.
He could never do the same. Eric Swalwell could never do the same, folks. Never.
Okay. All right. So, anyways, this is your
No, we should
question.
keep going.
Anyway, let's see how he answers.
Yeah.
Various industries is a relatively new phenomenon. It's possible that their creativity and power is a result of political shifts and education in the Bible. Okay, this is a really good criticism of my previous lecture. And yeah, I mean, the idea is that maybe there's certain aspects of the Jewish culture that makes them dominant in an industrial, capitalistic, globalized world.
Huh? No? Buddy, that's the main people who are dominant are mostly Protestants. Huh? Well, I didn't know that the industrialists of the United States of America were all Jewish. Hello?
Yeah,
I thought they were all a part of like Hollywood and media.
Yeah, no. Like Rockefeller was evangelical, right? I think, or it might have been
Ford
Catholic,
was a
which.
Nazi.
Yeah, Ford was an evangelical turned Nazi. I mean, if you just think like Edison was like most of them were Protestants and evangelicals. Like they weren't.
Yeah,
they weren't,
like
and Catholics maybe.
yeah, maybe there's a couple Catholics, but no, Jiang.
Yeah.
No, no. What?
Yeah, and it's like you're going to compare great industrialists like that to Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg makes nowhere near the money of those people. I mean, yeah, he's a big film director and stuff, but he's just a director. Like he's not the entertainment giant that's making all the revenue from, from movie sales and sponsorships. Like he's a director, he gets his cut. So to compare, say, someone like Steven Spielberg to say, some, I don't know, pick your favorite evil capitalist. I mean, I guess you could. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to go this
Elon
far, but,
Musk.
like, well, not him. No, Sam Altman, because Sam Altman actually is, from a Jewish background. I mean, you could say him, but even then, Sam Altman is not the richest of them. Like, again, like I said, most of the rich billionaires in the world.
Richest one.
Well, he's not Jew. Musk isn't Jewish.
Well, no, I'm saying, but he's the richest, right?
He's the richest man ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's him, and like most of the richest people. Like if you look at the top 10, top 20 billionaires, you're not gonna find a lot of Jewish people on there. Maybe one. I don't know. Like maybe there's one or two, but most of them are from like all over the world. They're from like Europe. There's obviously Ambani from India. I think it's like 3 or 4 or something like that. They're from all over the world. China, Chinese billionaires, right? It's just again, it's which markets and societies have economic hegemonic dominance at the moment. That's basically what determines it. It's not religion. So. Yeah, Soros is the only one, and he's not even like he's not even
that high up.
Multi-billionaire.
Yeah.
He's not a multi-billionaire like a huge multi-billionaire. So, and he's given away a lot of his money anyways. So, so yeah.
This is silly. We're just
I think we've.
Yeah. We just keep going. Yeah.
And there is some truth to that.
We got a lot to go.
Yeah.
About Chinese people, because Chinese people are extremely materialistic. Like Chinese.
Really?
This is some self-hate, bro.
Well, yeah, like, hello? Most Chinese people live under, like, barely, like, at the global poverty line. It's pretty bad in China. Yeah, like, hello?
Yeah.
Don't be a Chinese...
Yeah,
don't be a Chinese industrial worker. It's not great, folks.
Yeah, outside tier 1, tier 2 cities, it's not great over there.
Yeah.
I will be completely honest, yeah.
Of money. But we're not as creative as Jewish people. So I think that being materialistic, being capitalistic, it's not enough. You also need to have an element of creativity within your culture. And that's why I think that the Bible helps.
Okay, like, what does that mean, right? Like, what the fuck does that mean? Element of creativity, like, in terms of, like, culture, like, cultural sort of hegemony?
Yeah, what does that even... Okay, has this guy... Okay.
What's that mean?
First of all, okay, I'm gonna get on my South Asian history arc here. I'm the South Asian freedom fighter in this community. Okay, so
That's true.
one of many. So 235 also is okay. So 235 is my South Indian counterpart. I'm the North Indian. So anyways, the creativity in a society, again, look at indigenous peoples for like time immemorial, for thousands of years. They've been look at their look at all the art and storytelling and oral traditions and music and stuff they've created. That's not creative to you. Like, that's messed up. See, this is, like I said, this is a very colonizer way to view the world, right? The way this is essentially what what British officers would probably say when they came to India, and they would say, oh, these people aren't really that creative and stuff like that. I'm like, have you seen the dresses and clothing we wear? Have you seen the food we make?
Bro, has this guy seen like those Chinese dragons and like parades and shit like that? Those things are crazy.
And all the architecture and or like in Japan, those Shinto temples and how colorful they are. That's not creative.
Okay, dude. Nice meme.
Tamil poetry goes back about 8,000, 9,000 plus years. Like it's we humans have been creative since they've existed. Like it doesn't mean that I have a better civilization, therefore I'm creative. It's like, whatever, man.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, Mahabalipuram. Yeah, so I'm gonna mess this up, but yeah, there's a couple places in Tamil Nadu that have like really old architecture and history preserved. Old temples. Mahabalipuram and Thoothukudi. If you go to those places, and there's a lot of other places in southern India that have like just incredible art. Like your jaw will be on the floor. He's saying creative because he doesn't want to say sneaky. That's so true. That's probably it.
The sneaky Indians, folks. They're very sneaky, folks.
Anyways.
Of Jews. Okay? So this is a really good point. And also, the point to understand is that this is a class on intellectual speculation. Okay? We're trying to figure out
intellectual speculation.
Yeah, so based off of we know what he means by that. Schizophrenic conspiracy theories that I just randomly come up with in my basement.
Moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
There's no truth there, okay? So everything I say, we're going to solve, doubt whatever I say. This class is really meant to be a platform or jumping board for you to undertake your own intellectual journey, okay? All right, so please keep that in mind. But we're going to look more closely at this question today, okay? Why is it that Jews are so dumb?
Here we go.
So we will look at the beginning of the Jewish people. And I'm going to make the argument to you that Israel and the Jewish identity are constructs of the imperial imagination.
What does that mean?
Oh man, there's so many ways you could. I mean,
imperial imagination.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to. So I'll let him cook a little bit. Let's see.
Yeah, just keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, I need context.
This is hard to understand, so I'm explaining to you slowly. Yeah. The idea is that because of its geographical location, Israel has always been historically important. And as a result, different empires have tried to manipulate the identity of Israel to best promote their own agenda or policies. Okay, so I know this is a hard concept to understand, but we'll go for it slowly. And again, we're spending like the rest of the semester on this major thesis of ours.
I mean, you could say that about a lot of places around the world. I mean, you could say that. I mean, there's so many like okay, what can you say about Turkey and
yeah, this is
used to be called Anatolia, right?
Yeah, this is something that's highly contextual based on like the current sort of Mecca and Medina. You could say the exact same thing. Those are giant religious cities that are very, very like important as well. Like it doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah, or like an example. There's actually a book I'm reading right now by a Ukrainian historian. His name is Serhiy Plokhy, and he wrote a book called The Gates of Europe, and it talks about the whole history, even prehistory, of Ukraine and the Pontic Steppe, and like how important that was. But he also says himself, like, he compares it to a lot of other places around the world that are
Constantinople has been the most important city throughout history as well, many a time.
Right. Yeah, for a long time in the Roman, even before Rome, because I mean the Bosphorus Strait and all that stuff. But I'm saying the Pontic Steppe and sort of that being sort of the gateways into like Europe and the Western Hemisphere. It's like there's no one place that is geographically important. There are like nexus points and like vital like infrastructure and waterways, and you could say that much. But like to say that the Levant or Israel or whatever you want to call it is unique, I'm not buying it. Like it's on the Mediterranean Sea. Every point on the Mediterranean Sea was like strategically important. So was Greece. Okay, what about Greece and Italy and Spain? They're all strategically important. What about Gibraltar? The point where Europe touches Africa, pretty much.
Oh, the British were sawing the fuck out over Gibraltar. They still own it to this day.
They still do. Yep. Cyprus, the British are still sawing out over it.
So, no, that's a Greek and a Turkish thing right now.
Yeah, but well, it was a British colony, I think, but I think they just have a base. Isn't the RAF
I
have
believe they
or
do have a
they
base
pull out?
there, um,
Okay,
but that's disputed between the Greeks and the Turks right now.
of course. Wow. Yeah. Insane. Anyways, but yeah. Anyways, yeah. This three rules of geopolitics. Oh boy.
I should
Oh,
keep
these
going,
are
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about history. Okay, so what we did last week is look at the cultures that have emerged out of Bronze Age collapse, which are now going to dominate history. Okay, they are the Greeks, the Persians, and the Israelites. Okay, now we're going to look at how these ideas
Man, this is so westernized. Anyways.
play out in history. But for us to do that, we first need to understand how history works. Now, I identified three different patterns of geopolitics, okay? And I want you guys to remember these patterns. The first
True,
pattern
you two
is this.
35.
It's really important I understand. Competition within nation states are what matter, okay? Competition between nation states don't really matter, or they're not significant as competition within nation states. And the idea we have here is elite overproduction. So what drives a lot of conflict is the fact that domestically you have these different competing factions, and they're all competing for power, okay? So you have too many elites, too few status positions, and so they're competing against each other. This drives a lot of conflict, okay? So
Okay, what?
I mean, so he's saying that competition between nation states isn't as important as competition within a nation
Religion?
state. So
Yeah.
within a nation state, you're going to have, I guess, divisions of society or whatever, right? You're going to have a caste system or a class system of some kind. And yeah, I mean, he's basically saying that, oh, there's very few elite positions at the top, and there's way too many elites and all this stuff.
Yeah, and the question
and-
was, yeah, what is exactly,
Yeah.
what does that exactly fucking mean?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
there's
what
no
does he mean
class
by that?
analysis. There's no class analysis. There's no socioeconomics in this. It's like, no, I don't buy this theory of elite overproduction. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
no, I don't.
it's anti-materialistic, right?
Yep.
Period.
Yeah, this is, yeah. That Marx and not only him, many others,
Many
even,
people would
even.
be like, nah, bro, what the fuck are you talking about?
I mean, even Adam Smith. Adam Smith.
Adam Smith would
with this.
disagree with him as well. This is true.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not buying this point that yeah he's missing material analysis about countries. So anyways, let's go on.
status positions, and so they're competing against each other. This drives a lot of conflict. Okay, that's the first idea. Second idea is that the elite have shifting loyalties. Okay, think of Game of Thrones.
Okay, I'll agree with him on this. I mean that's been true throughout time with heads of state and rulers. Yeah, there's shifting loyalties.
Nobles
Play
backstab
Crusader Kings 3.
Yeah, nobles
Yeah.
backstab each other all the time. That happens
Yeah.
constantly.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you guys have seen the TV series or read the books Game of Thrones, but everyone wants to be king, right? And they're gonna kill their brother. They're gonna kill the father. They're gonna
Okay,
kill
we already went over this part.
The third thing is that war can be a mechanism to protect the status quo. All right, the idea of equilibrium in that sometimes the conflict is really bad, so what you do is start a war so you can start off people to get killed. Okay, and that way you can maintain equilibrium within your system. We'll see this we'll see this pattern throughout human history.
He's not exactly
war.
He's not exactly wrong here. I mean, war is essentially doing politics through different means, right? He's not entirely
violence,
inaccurate
yeah.
there. But in terms of like preservation of the status quo, kind of, sort of, in various ways, but it's not exactly accurate. Not really. Because what's like, for example, what's going on in Iran, that's not for preservation of the status quo. That's an upending of the status quo. Like, because Netanyahu jingled some fucking keys. It's like what the fuck is this? Yeah, that's a good point, Armor and Quills. Yeah, no one says geopolitics with a hyphen between the geo and the politics. That never fucking happens. Like, no one spells it like that. It's all one word, generally speaking.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. Might be a different English. I don't know what they do in like British English or whatever. But I've never.
No,
seen
he went to
them.
Canada.
I'm just gonna.
He went to Canada to study. He knows to speak English.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And he's fucking BA in literature. Okay, whatever. Just keep going.
Anyways, I'm not gonna gripe over a hyphen.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. War. I wouldn't say war necessarily protects the status quo because you're decimating a lot. You're dedicating a lot of food, a lot of resources and things to war. Right. World War II, people were rationing here. Right. We were rationing bread, butter, everything, meat. So because it had to go to the front lines, and so yeah. No, I don't think it's not to protect the status quo. It's to fulfill imperialist objectives, right? Generally generally, right? That's generally
Depends,
what war
yeah.
has been for, is conquest, imperialist objectives, or it could be as simple as, hey, two kings beefing and duking it out. That's the older example, I guess.
The best way to
Yeah,
always put this is it's politics by different means.
exactly.
So these are the three ideas I want you guys to remember as we move on and discuss world history. All right, so I want to give us an example for us to understand. Okay, think of the Warring States period of China before the emergence of the first empire, the Qing Empire. Okay, and as you can see from this map, China is divided into different warring states that are all powerful. And at this time in history, the Qing Empire, sorry, the Qing state is the poorest, it's the most isolated, and it is the least advanced. Okay, you can see that Chu, Zhao, they are more powerful. And you can argue that eventually one of them would emerge to unite all of China, but they did not. It was the Qing, the isolated, marginalized, backward state that came to conquer. And so the question is, why did this happen? And so if we use our three principles, right, we can understand why. These three states, these different states are not competing against each other. It's the elites within these states are competing against each other, okay, elite overproduction. So the way they manage this is for them to use warfare in order to maintain the status quo, to create equilibrium, okay? And how we know is, from this time emerges the idea of Chinese chess, right?
What? Okay, hold on. So, okay, I'm not 100%. I'm not okay. I am not too familiar with the Warring Period, like Three Kingdoms era of China. Okay, don't know a lot there. But he's trying to like apply his like strange sort of like idea. I mean, it was a bunch of like. Is he technically? He's not wrong there. A bunch of like big players had like their own sort of ambitions for their kingdoms to try to unify the entirety of the state of China, sort of. I think that's like a very, very TLDR version of it. It's not exactly how it works. Again, I'm not 100% familiar with this era of history because I haven't really looked at it all that much. It is interesting, though. Not exactly. It's mostly just like... It's a bunch of differing competing interests, a lot of backstabbing, like... Not really like... What's he saying? Like overproduction because of elite interests or something? Like whatever his like weird conspiracy theory is, or not conspiracy.
Or too much. So he's talking about how like elites in a society. No, we do have an idea of what we're talking about. The elites in the society are like competing for a few, noble seats, next to the emperor. Let's say. I mean, you could probably say this was true and say like.
Yeah, but
during, like, Louis the 16th's time or whatever.
Yeah, I think during the Three Kingdoms period, I don't think there was an emperor, or the emperor was like a puppet, basically. Like they had zero power, like nothing whatsoever. I think, which is why it all deteriorated into the sort of like kingdoms, the kingdoms like warring
states.
Yeah, it's God, it's the name of the fucking fat warlord, right? And his main shtick was he was fat. It wasn't Cao Cao. Cao Cao was like the quote-unquote tactical, strategic, brilliant mind. There's Lu Bu, and there's, I think it's like Wei something. I don't remember. But from what I understood, that guy, from what I understood, that guy was like a complete shitter, and everyone hated him. And he was the one who made it first to the emperor, and then essentially... that dude was the one who sort of like became the de facto emperor because he was the first to make it back to the imperial palace, something like that. I don't remember 100% exactly.
I wouldn't say that's elite overproduction. The reason being, they were different states. So what Jiang is talking about when he says elite overproduction, it's within a single state. So in this case,
don't pay attention to anything in YouTube chat. That guy's a fucking moron.
Yeah, I won't.
Who cares?
Right, but I'm addressing. So Jiang himself is actually a little confused because he's saying that, it's warring emperors, so that's elite overproduction. No, earlier his definition of elite overproduction is within a single state. It's not between states. That's what he said earlier. So he's contradicting himself already. Anyways, my response to this is he's basing a theory of how the world works based on a particular period of history and how warring empires got together. It's not that simple. You can't just say, oh, it happened in China, so this is how it works everywhere.
Yeah,
you can't just rubber stamp it.
Yeah, it's not because of a bunch of elites sort of like competing with one another. It depends. It depends on the sort of like conditions right at the time here, right? It
And
depends.
that's why you need material analysis, exactly. And it could be that again, maybe maybe this empire over here had, which eventually won over the others. Maybe they had terrain advantage, maybe they had resource advantages. They may not have had monetary wealth and financialization, but they might have had
From
resource advantages. Who
hands,
knows?
yeah, the sort of like
Yeah.
strategic initiative during the Three Kingdoms period, it exchanged hands quite often, from what I remember. Where,
Very volatile.
yeah, it was very volatile. Again, like all of these guys constantly made a bunch of like deals with one another, backstabbed each other constantly, a whole bunch of different stuff like this.
Anyways, moving on.
Okay, you have warfare that is regulated, that is ritualized. Okay, so when we go to war, when we battle each other, we have to respect each other's the rules of the warfare. That's stupid. War should be about killing the other guy. It should be about following the rules. Okay.
I mean, there was.
So it's just
I mean, there was
law
kind
of
of
jungle.
I mean, there was kind of rules of engagement, but not really at those times. Sort of. Like, it wasn't really like exactly enforced. Like, there was no Geneva Convention, but like,
Oh no.
like, not exactly. I think like it varied from like empire to empire in terms of like military
Yes.
doctrine and what the specific general wanted to do. It just depended on what the general would want to do.
Yep.
So another piece of evidence is, at this time in history, Sun Tzu wrote the book The Art of War. This is one of the stupidest books ever written, okay? I guarantee you, if you follow this book, you're going to lose the war badly.
Wait,
Because
did
this
Sun
is
Tzu
really about-
write the Art of War during the Three Kingdoms era? I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I thought the art of war was like revisionist propaganda.
When did the
or some
Art
degree.
of War get written? I don't remember exactly. Yeah, it was written in the 5th century. Three Kingdoms period was earlier than that.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
post hoc.
Yeah, it was
Like a lot of the, yeah, a lot of, again, like it's kind of like the Bible, right? A lot of the newer parts of the Bible, like the New Testament. I mean, obviously the Old Testament, that's been around.
Yeah,
The Jewish
yeah. It
people
was.
have-
By the way, the Art of War was written
Yeah.
about 200, like 250 years later. Like
That's
what?
like several lifetimes after.
Yeah,
Sun Tzu.
there's been so many fucking developments and changes. Like, what are you talking about, Jiang?
Yep.
how to cheat in a heavily regulated game, okay? So things like using spies, making a hierarchy, okay? You have all these rules. And guess what? In actual war, none of these things actually work, okay? So if you look at history, I'm going to tell you exactly how to win a war, okay? And the way you win a war is, first of all, you have to be completely committed to winning this war, okay? Total warfare. Second is that if you want to win this war, you have to make sure that talent arises. So you have to be open and meritocratic, okay? If an officer...
No society is meritocratic.
Yeah.
There's
Also,
never been a meritocratic society in the history of the world.
also, by the way, the people who become fucking generals, generally speaking, are fucking nepo baby. Like like if we're talking about like ancient times, it's nepo baby fucking nobles and shit all the time.
Yeah, whoever licked the emperor's boots the most.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Or if they were on retainer. Well, if you're on retainer, you're not a general. You're just you're.
Yeah,
you
no
know,
one,
you're-
no, like,
you're-
yeah,
you're a
no
grunt.
one's, yeah, no one's going to scout out their
Yeah.
like nearest peasant spearman or whatever and make them all of a sudden a tactician. Like, that's not how that works.
No, you're just a grunt and you're taking orders.
Hmm.
So, anyways, yeah.
If a general is winning this war, you promote him. That sounds easy, right? But not if you're strategical power. Because what's important to you is to maintain that your family is always on top. So if a general arises who is very innovative, who's really talented, you kill him because he's a threat to you. Okay? So the
I mean, it
principle is
depends.
make sure
It's not that simple. It depends, right? Because it's very, very political during those times where certain like monarchs during the time will have like better relations with their general, yada yada yada, or they'll be a part of their family, blah 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 blah. Blah. It depends. It really, really depends.
Oh, also modern example. When Trump won, right? When he killed Soleimani, right? One of the top generals in Iran. Did that weaken Iran? No, not really.
Yeah, it didn't.
If
really
anything,
do
it strengthened them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So anything, it told them, yeah, we need to stockpile more fucking weapons.
Yeah. It just mobilized them more than anything else. So yeah, no, that that didn't really work. And yeah, this third point about discipline and high morale among soldiers, I mean, again,
I think it's just
getting behind an.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a general sort of thing. This is like highly fucking gamified. That's not exactly how that works in reality. Like, Junk, you're not playing fucking Rome Total War, buddy, where you need to make sure that your general is closer to your not your skirmish infantry, but your throwaway infantry or something, to make sure that they hold the line a little longer so they get morale boosts. It's not how that fucking works.
Yeah, and most people, what do they join the military for? They join to escape poverty. That's essentially the main reason people join the military. It's not actual like discipline, morale, and all that. It's just necessity. So,
or they got like conscripted back during those times.
Yeah, or back in the day it was conscription. Yes, correct. What do you think he means when his state at war should be open? I don't know. I don't know. What
I have no idea, because he's like saying like be open and meritocratic, like that anyone should be accepted in like a position of like an officer or a general or some form of tactician. It's like it's just not how any of this society works. Like,
no, you have to be selective. You have to be selective for those kind of leadership positions. Like if you're not, you're gonna lose.
Because like I said before, you're not gonna give your average peasant all of a sudden like a fucking officer role during those. That never happens. Never happened.
Anyways, siege warfare. Oh, lovely.
Are happy. I know it sounds really simple, but again, if you're a successful power, you don't really care. Okay? Destroy enemy civilian centers. Siege warfare. Okay? Go and destroy the city because that's how they produce their work capacity, right? The food.
That's that's not how siege warfare worked back at those times. Generally, how siege warfare happened was you would surround the city, cut off all avenues of the city from being able to get food, and then you just starve them out. Right?
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah, you don't want to destroy everything because then you have to rebuild them.
Yeah, it's too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, it was more about just choking the town or the city.
Mm-hmm. Like if you could storm in from time to time, if there's like an opportunity that presents itself to storm in to like probe the defenses. Yeah, you do that, right? Yeah. Also, yeah, good point. Armor and quills. Yeah, cities. No one produces of food. Stupid, right? Very, very dumb.
Yep.
Kill civilians. Disrupt supply lines. Overstretch your enemy. Divide and conquer. Strike your enemy. Kill their gods. Okay. If you really want a war.
Again, that's the eschatological BS coming in. Like you can't like. Okay, what do you mean? I guess, I don't know, burn their idols down or whatever. I mean...
Yeah, like, this nonsense.
I mean, you're burning statues down. You're just burning a statue down or a temple. There's probably another statue of the same idol in the next town over. Like...
Okay.
So, sure, what did you win there? Nothing.
If you really want to win a war, this is what you have to do. And we know because this is what the Romans did. This is what the Prussians did. This is what the Aztecs did. This is what the conquistadors did. This is what the Mongols did. Every single power that has conquered everyone else has done all these things. Okay, so when they don't do these things, it's because these different warring states aren't actually at war with each other. They're actually friends. Okay, they're all intermarried with each other. They're all trying to maintain the status quo. They use war as a game in order to maintain the status quo, to create equilibrium. Okay. So this is true for Mesopotamia. Okay, Mesopotamia is important because remember, this is the cradle of civilization. This is where the first empires will emerge. This is where most technological innovation happens. This was for the longest time the wealthiest part of the world. Okay, so remember, the idea of Mesopotamia is that the first city-state is Uruk, and then they will develop colonies throughout the Tigris and Euphrates, and then these colonies will come into war with each other. And they're all friends with each other, they're all intermarried, and the elite create these highly ritualized warfare, okay? And one really important rule is that you don't kill each other's god, okay? Because in their religion, the god lives in their temple. So you don't attack their temple. But guess what? All their money, all their gold is in the temple, okay? So you're not allowed to steal each other's gold. That's stupid, okay? Because now, you don't even accomplish much.
So isn't this like more so like materialist analysis over here? Yeah, you don't go after the gold. I mean, those are supposed to be like the essential spoils of war, blah 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 blah, right? That's the kind of like thing behind that. There's a lot of even back during ancient times, there's a lot of fucking very very specific, highly contextualized rules with this stuff very very often, right? Like in terms of spoils from a battle, typically it was a huge fucking faux pas to let's say you like lost a battle, to then just go out and like harass the people claiming the fucking loot of like, you know, scavenging a bunch of like armor from like dead people. Huge fucking social faux pas, for example, right? It would constantly speaking, it would like kind of depend. I mean, generally speaking, why a lot of people would like siege cities is because first off, it's kind of hard to siege a walled city with a bunch of dudes on foot. Like it's kind of difficult to get over the wall. So that's generally speaking why, for the most part, instead of, you know, actually trying to destroy the city, because that takes a lot of time, resources, manpower. If there's like a hole within the wall or something, or weakness. You can just probe for the weaknesses, blah, 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 blah. If something works, you can storm in, you get lucky, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't happen very, very often throughout history with, like, an enemy army, like, just storming in on the city, unless, like, someone's on the inside or something helping you out, which is something which does happen very, very often, right? And, like, generally speaking, most cities were forced to surrender, or they would just willingly, like, just be like, listen, you, like, completely cooked the Grand Army by, like, our main general or monarch or whatever. Just take the fucking city. We don't want to deal with the siege. Like, fuck that, right? Most cities,
that's when surrender comes
most cities would just fucking surrender, right? Generally speaking. And then, like, garrisons get left and whatnot, and then you just keep moving on. Because, again, like, nobody wants the fucking... Going through a siege takes a long time. Like, it depends on, like, the local rulers within the cities themselves, like, what they would want to do very, very often. Most of the time, depending on, like, the size of the town, depending on the size of the fucking city, most of them are just going to be like, hey, man, we want nothing to do with this. Fuck that. Whatever. Just take it over. Otherwise, like, if it was, like, a bigger city, it was easier to defend, and it's, like, a more prominent governor or whatever, or, like, a noble in the fucking area, they'll just try to fight, right? Very often, there's, like, a lot of negotiations that also happen between the two people, trying to get, like, some kind of a deal to be like, listen, we're just going to keep staying here and starve you out. Like, eventually, you're going to fucking croak at some point, which is kind of the point of a lot of this stuff, is to make the other guy in the fucking walled city croak, right? Like, who's going to, I don't know, call mercy first, or chicken first, or whatever. Very often with a lot of siege warfare, it's who calls... It's a game of chicken, very, very often.
And you have to remember, back then, siege warfare was the highest, like, if you were a king or a lord or whatever, it was the most expensive thing your empire did. Your kingdom or whatever empire, sultanate did, was sieging other places. It's the most expensive thing.
Very,
right? So
very,
you want to get it done quickly. You want to make them surrender ASAP. Like, you don't want to.
Yeah, you don't want
the structure in the temple and all that.
You really don't want protracted sieges, especially depending on, like, your overall, like, tactical goals and whatnot. Of course, a lot of this got upended essentially because of the advent of the cannon, which made walls basically useless. Like, technology significantly changed quite a lot of this, but if we're talking about, like, really, really early, like, Mesopotamic, like, Egyptian Bronze Age sort of era, you'd, like, siege warfare was fucking hard because walls are very, very, they're very tough.
Not that much of warfare. So for the longest time, this was the status quo. And then what happened is a
little louder will be good.
Man named
If you can.
Levant, okay? And you can think of him as lower nobility. So what we'll see in history is that within a city-state, there's always been conflict between the upper nobility and the lower nobility, okay? The upper nobility is in charge. They want to maintain the status quo. The lower nobility want to steal that power, okay? This will happen in Rome, where Julius Caesar is of the lower nobility, and he will steal
So he's talking about the Empire of Akkad.
And so Lucas Legacy is from Umma, and he's like, you know what, screw this. These rules are stupid. I want to conquer everyone. I want to be the top dog, okay? So what he's doing that's very different from previous times is he's now going and ransacking each of these temple. So now he has the capacity to be able to build an empire, okay? But by doing that, what happens is that...
So, yeah, it's basically, like, ransack all the riches, try to bring back spoils, loot, blah, 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 blah. Very, very simple.
The other city-states recognize him as a threat, and so they invite mercenaries, a place called Akkad, to come and help them, okay? And this leads us to the first world empire called the Akkadian Empire, named by Sargon of Akkad. Now, his name is interesting. His name means legitimate ruler.
Not the content creator.
He's not a legitimate ruler. He's probably a mercenary like David who stole the throne. Okay? He saw an opportunity and he stole the throne. But there's a pattern in history where if there's competition among different city-states, the competition is not resolved amongst themselves because they have an equilibrium. So what happens is that an outsider, a mercenary, usually comes in who doesn't respect the rules and he's able to unite everyone. Okay? Through innovations.
That is not how that works at all whatsoever. He's not exactly wrong. This has happened before, but generally speaking, a lot of the sort of quote unquote greats within history, like say Peter the Great or whatever, who have had like major like territorial gains and like military victories and whatnot, are in line with the noble fucking bloodline. It wasn't just like a random mercenary like with a chip on his shoulder who decided to, I don't know, like strike it out and get lucky and make it fucking rich. That's like not exactly how that works out, right? Unless he's like, again, still talking about like really, really like early eras of history still. But even then, it was mostly like local fucking rulers, people within positions of power. Like, yeah, did a mercenary king always happen again? And he like, I don't know, force his way into like a position of power and nobility? Yeah, it happened. not that often. Like
Yeah,
most
and that's kind of the myth around. Sorry, that's the myth around King David, right? Because when David, when obviously the narrative is David, David killed Goliath and slayed a giant with a slingshot or whatever.
not the
Yeah, I
Nephilim.
mean, obviously that's yeah, exactly. And then later, later became the king of Israel or whatever. Obviously, it's a narrative. It's actually a little biblical history for you, or biblical, I guess. They've done some like archaeology to try to check the veracity of the biblical narratives, and it turns out there's no like existing record of David that's like agreed upon. And same with King Solomon. So at this point, they're kind of mythical kings, and you'll see this a lot. This is not unique to Judaism or Christianity. Hinduism is full of this, by the way, with mythical kings, and obviously, in England you have the myth of King Arthur and many others.
Yeah.
So yeah, nothing new. But there's a sort of narrative of like a mercenary coming in and usurping and all this stuff. That's essentially King David's.
Yeah, or like a lot of these
narrative.
like mythological kings that people told stories about, because it's like, I mean, maybe there was a guy like that, maybe, but we don't have any writings about this, so let's just tell stories, because that's how a lot of these like initial tidbits of history were passed down, was through people telling stories. A lot of this wasn't written down. The advent of
Oral.
yeah, I mean, like a lot. The advent of writing came later. Like, I mean, they were doing it partially within like Mesopotamia. They were doing it then. So it existed pretty much by that point in time. But most of the stuff that we have like preserved right now, either it's like very difficult to sort of like translate because we lost the ability to be able to do that because it got lost throughout like passing of time and throughout history, or was not really like properly fucking preserved. Like, so it's tough. A lot of historians have to kind of make like some guesses, like educated guesses, saying like, I mean, we think this is what happened. There's constant fucking debates about like a lot of the interpretations and stories as well. It's one of those things where it's just like, yeah, like it's a bit of a shit show, guys.
All right, moving on.
So this is why the Qing dynasty and not the Jiao or the Chu or the Wei were able to unite all of China, because the Qing dynasty was given to total warfare. They didn't care about your rules. They wanted to win. Okay?
Not
so
exactly
as you
how
see, the
that
Indian Empire
works.
stretches throughout the Fertile Crescent, okay? Conquers Mesopotamia, modern Iraq, extends over to Anatolia, and captures a lot of the Levant, okay? But this area, the Levant, is historically the most strategic location in the world. Why? Because it gives you access to Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Anatolia. Historically, the three wealthiest parts of the world. So whoever controls the Levant is able to always threaten Egypt. Okay? And for most of history, this part, the Levant, was an Egyptian colony. But remember that after the Bronze Age collapsed, Egypt was not able to project power in the Levant, and so the different empires fought for the Levant in order to threaten Egypt. Okay? So Jerusalem is literally the center of the world. And we'll see that throughout history, people consider Jerusalem the center of the world, both for religious reasons, but also really for geopolitical.
Dude.
Yeah, it's not. That's
Okay.
not exactly it. They considered the region, sort of generally speaking, important because there was a lot of highly fucking valuable cities like Sidon, Tyre, Antioch,
Ports.
Damascus,
Yeah, all ports.
all the ports. They wanted access to those fucking ports to get like lucrative Mediterranean trade. Mostly, that's what they fucking wanted.
The other reason is terrain, right? So if you look at the actual, so again, him saying it's the only like most important place in the world, not really. Now, was it a valuable thoroughfare? Sure, it was, because you had all the port cities, and then you also had terrain advantage. Because see, if you go to the Levant today, in southern what is today Israel, but southern Palestine, you have the Negev Desert, which is a brutally hot
flat.
desert. That's
Very easy to defend.
and it's very easy to defend. Well, it's hard to traverse also, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a natural barrier. Like,
it's a natural barrier. So naturally you go through, coastal Palestine, and then you go through, then you get to, Sinai and then Egypt. So, it was just geography. Like there's nothing, like he's trying to say that there's like some religious eschatological, reason that this is the center of the world. It's like, no, it was
no,
just
it's
geography,
yeah,
man.
it's just very, very
Nothing
strategic.
special.
Yeah, strategically advantageous. It is a very rich in terms of like agricultural production as well. Lots of various crops and like products that you can sort of like grow there for trading fucking purposes, like say like incense, olives, various other fucking crops that you could grow there. Very valuable for trade, generally speaking. That's the main reason why.
And again, to call it the center of the world, like I wouldn't say that. I mean, the South China Sea has always been, you know, that body of water has always been strategically important in Asia. Then you have the Bosphorus Strait in Turkey, right? All of these are strategically important. And again, it's all geography. There's nothing spiritual or special about whatever. Like yeah,
I don't think there was like a lot of like, I don't know, Temple Israel or Al-Aqsa Mosque type shit in fucking Jerusalem at this point. Like this is
way before that.
Yeah, those did not exist quite yet, Jiang.
Reasons, okay? Now, the other thing to remember about this area is that it's highly competitive because it's hard to protect Mesopotamia. Okay, it's very, very wealthy, but as you can see, there are these mountain tribes over here that can always threaten Mesopotamia, okay? So this is a pattern in history where whoever established an empire in Mesopotamia is always being threatened by the mountains, the regions, the borderlands. Okay, this is a pattern throughout.
Not exactly. Again, a lot of rivers you have to cross, which means a lot of bridges, which means a lot of choke points. So not really. Like if we're talking about, were these guys, because a lot of the tribes up here, like these hill tribes, generally speaking, more nomadic, rely on a lot of like horse armies, generally speaking, like. Because they were sort of, I'm mostly like referring to probably Hellenistic history here. A lot of like Eastern sort of like Zoroastrian societies that relied more on the horse, and that was like their main sort of like units within battle. Horses in rivers do not go well together.
No.
They don't. Horses don't like water. They don't like traversing over water. Get a horse on a boat. Oh, that horse will not like it. So it makes it rather easy to defend because if you just establish certain bridges with choke points, you can put your forces there, make sure the enemy can't make makeshift bridges to go over there, harass them with like range units and whatever. Like, it becomes relatively easy to hold. You just have to make sure you have like good scouting in order to be able to like catch that out, blah, 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 to shut down any attempts to try to cross these rivers.
Mesopotamian history. And that's why these empires change all the time, okay? So this is the Babylonian Empire. This gives us Hammurabi. Okay, then you have the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrian Empire is famous for their brutality. They'll come, if you rebel against them, they will kill everyone. Okay? They're notorious for their brutality. Now remember, at this time in history, an empire is not the empire of today where you can exert authority everywhere. An empire at this time is you're mainly controlling certain choke points of trade, and everyone else just sort of like goes along because it benefits them. Okay, so an empire is more like a loose confederation as opposed to a nation state. Okay, so this is the.
It depends on the structure. He's not exactly inaccurate. Here, it really, really depends on the structure and the fucking cultures and customs of the area, right? So, for example, a lot of these, like, Eastern-based empires, so, for example, say, like, the Seleucids, or, say, the Parthians, or the Sassanids, very often, how it would work is they would have local satraps, so nobles within those cities, within the area, who controlled the particular cities, centers of sort of, like, power, more or less. They would have those nobles in their back pocket. If they go to war, they ask the satraps to provide materiel and manpower in order to be able to create a grand army. So then the main ruler and the main ruler's family, sometimes they'll also bring nobles from within those local satraps alongside to command their fucking forces within battle. Blah 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 blah. Yada yada yada. That's generally speaking how it would work. Sometimes it would also be through direct annexation. It depends, if depending on the wealth and size of the forces within, and also the amount of like family members that also exist within a lot of these families, because they would always, or like allies that are sympathetic to the main empire's sort of cause or families or what have you, because of like hyper specifically focusing on the Greeks. That's how it, generally speaking, happened. They divide certain areas based around one city, and then they put in some form of local governor in that area, and they would govern that particular area. Yada yada yada, shit like that. That's kind of more or less.
Those are the city states, right? The city states of Greece. But then,
that's how Alexander would do it. Like he had all of his generals Lysimachus, Ptolemy, Antigonos. The Diadochi, those are his generals. They were the ones who were also the main sort of governors of large swaths, large areas that he delegated himself. And then eventually, when Alexander died, when he said the famous line of, who should have your empire? Whoever is the strongest, right? That's what happened with the Successor
My
Wars.
right.
Yep, the war with the Diadochi. Ptolemy claimed Egypt, Antigonus most of Anatolia, Mesopotamia, Persia, sort of Transoxiana, a bunch of a huge fucking swath of land. Lysimachos was Thrace, pretty much all of Thrace and parts of Macedonia, and I think it was Philip that had the Greek states, right? Those are the main Diadochi, and they constantly had a bunch of wars with one another to try to see who's the strongest, who can reclaim fucking Alexander's empire, right? That's very, very TLDR version of the history. And a lot of these successor kingdoms governed in very, very different ways. So Ptolemy just went along with a lot of Egyptian customs and traditions. Antigonus had basically a fusion, a mix of both Greek and also Eastern sort of rulership, because again, Anatolia, that was most of the sort of Ionian sort of peninsula and provinces for Greece, alongside with more sort of Anatolian tribes. And then obviously once we get to Syria, Iraq, Persia, and further out east, that was a lot more of the Eastern sort of satraps, the Seleucids alone. It was very, very mixed, and it varied very, very often.
Yeah, that's what I think. So I was just gonna say that I do want to just get through this, but I think one thing I'm seeing with Professor Jiang, and some people might say, oh yeah, he's using logic and he has a full understanding. I don't think he does, because he is treating each of these empires, whether it's the the Achaemenids or the Neo-Syrian Empire, any of these empires, he's treating them as monoliths. They're really not. Like you said, they're based around a single city or wherever the ruler sits, and then they subjugate entire regions and communities and villages, right? So it's not so much loyalty. He seems to think that everybody just does that out of loyalty to the kingdom. No, it's subjugation. It's
very
it's
often,
forced.
yeah. Generally speaking, yeah. It's not
Yeah.
a ruler will go along with it, pretend to be loyal, but they're just this guy's way stronger than me, so I'm just gonna be all right, man, fuck it. You have the bigger army, so whatever.
Yeah.
Syrian Empire. And this is the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Okay, so you have these empires that constantly change over time. History changes when a man emerges called Cyrus the Great. Okay, Cyrus the Great
Here's the
is the founder of
Achaemenids.
something called the Persian Achaemenid Empire. So last class we discussed Zoroastrianism. And Zoroastrianism is really the first great world religion because it provides a simple but powerful model of how the world works. And Zoroastrianism is powerful because it encourages everyone to be their best, right? To seek Asha. Now, for most people, what Asha means is don't ever lie. Okay, and it's actually a really useful thing if you're trying to run an empire. Because when you're an empire, you need soldiers, you need generals, you need administrators, right? And if people don't lie, if people are honest and moral, well, you can expand really quickly, right? And so that's what Cyrus the Great did. Cyrus the Great is also known for his mercy and his generosity. So when he conquers a place, what he will do is he will identify the best people, maybe the king himself, and make them advisors to his regime. Okay? He's known for his tolerance. He's known for his
Same with other rulers in the
and so what
past.
happens is that the Babylonian Empire basically surrendered to him in a fight. Why? Because of elite overproduction, right? You get this war going on between the upper nobility and the lower nobility, and they're like, you know what? Let's invite Cyrus the Great, and then we don't have to fight each other anymore, okay? And that's how Cyrus the Great was able to build the first world empire. Okay? This is Babylon, fall of Babylon, and Cyrus the Great. There are different stories, but one story is that they basically invited him in order to resolve their inner conflicts with each other. Okay.
Again, that's not exactly how that works. It depends. Very often when a lot of sieges happen, or an army shows up at the door, envoys are typically exchanged first, so they talk with each other. Very, very fucking often. So more than likely, they talked with one another and said, listen, man, we're not going to fight. Fuck this bullshit. Whatever. Don't want to do it. I'm not 100% privy to a lot of the battles that probably happened. There may have been an open battle where Cyrus probably had an overwhelming victory, and they were just you know what, man? We just got fucking owned. We're just going to let you fucking have it, and then just move on.
Yeah.
That's generally speaking how it worked.
Yeah, and I
Cyrus
do.
the Great is still in Iran today.
Yep.
I was gonna say I do have something about Cyrus the Great. Maybe he'll bring it up later. So it's about the Cyrus cylinder. But when he gets to it, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a story that when Alexander the Great, who was Macedonian, when he went to conquer the Persian Empire, he discovered that the Cyrus the Great, his tomb was in bad repair. They didn't really maintain or keep it. So he ordered for it to be properly maintained. Okay. The story is by the way probably false, but it shows you that at this time in history, about the year 300, 400. everyone, 300, 400 BCE, everyone was respectful of Cyrus the Great. Okay, Cyrus the Great is considered the world's greatest king or emperor. Okay.
Well, I mean, again, like he's not exactly like that's not exactly it. It's like if you, generally speaking, if you're a conqueror, most people are not going to like you because it's like, now it's a fucking foreign culture or whatever that we don't really know much about, and we're not really going to like that, and it's going to cause inherent instability. Like, it's, like cultural penalties. Like, for example, in like Roman Total War, you have like a cultural penalty, for example, because you just conquered a city of a foreign culture, blah 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 blah. So they don't like you because you have a different culture, yada yada yada. It causes public order issues because you have a different culture, and then you work to essentially, well, either A, assimilate it, or essentially B, like help maintain the local culture to make sure that people don't fucking rebel on the city that you just conquered. So then you don't have to like waste a bunch of time dealing with a fucking rebellion. That's generally speaking how it works.
Yep.
So as you can see, the Achaemenid Persian Empire is huge. Okay, it encompasses most of West Asia. Okay, so it goes from Iran all the way to Mesopotamia, to Anatolia, to parts of Greece, and basically all of Egypt and Libya. Okay, it's a huge area, and they were able to do this because of their innovations in religion as well as administration. Okay, all right. So let me explain. How do you rule empires usually? Okay, well, the traditional way is you control trade routes and access. Okay, so people have to pay you a tax to go for your trade routes. That's a traditional way. You can also use fear and conquest, and that's what the Assyrians were known for. They would come and kill everyone if you disobeyed them. You took hostages. That's a very common thing where you conquer people.
Not exactly. Again, it depended on how the fucking ruler would do it. Generally speaking, through fear and conquest, not exactly, right?
You take the children of the king as hostages. Okay, intermarriage. Religion, but what the Persians did really well.
Hostages are mostly used for like negotiations after, like that was the point.
After a siege. Yep.
Yeah.
Huge. That's why it's really well managed. Okay, effective administration. Again, you have religion, Zoroastrianism, where people can't lie. That's really good because these bureaucrats will now report real facts to the emperor. And
that's not really the main reason for as to why that fucking happened. A lot of them were basically coerced with potential punishment if they did not report well, like accurate information to the fucking main sort of hegemon or monarch. It's not because of fucking religion. That's nonsensical, right? Again, like that's just sort of like a cultural sort of anachronism. It depended, right? Very often for a lot of these empires, they didn't have one religion. They would have multiple fucking religions. Like, say, for the Ottomans, they would have Jews, Christians, Muslims, probably a bunch of pagans in there still anyways. They had a ton of different fucking people of faiths when they had their peak empire, for example, like, in the Levant and throughout parts of Egypt, North Africa, yada, 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 right? It wasn't just like...
The other thing, yeah. And the other thing you brought up about lying, right? So but he talked about how like Zoroastrianism was like the first quote unquote true religion, and it introduced the concept of truth, essentially. So this is something a lot of evangelicals do. They will say that before Judaism there was no such thing as truth, and now that's why it's special. It's like again.
But here's the fucking thing, right? Like Judaism. If we're talking about the Achaemenid Empire, Judaism was already a thing at this point.
Yes.
Yeah. So, like, to say that they didn't practice truth or whatever, or they weren't honest with one another, it's not exactly how that fucking works. No. That seems rather silly.
And people who say that, too, they say, oh, this was, before that, there was no such thing as truth. And it's like, okay, define truth then. And, of course, you get the Jordan Peterson, loopy, self-looping explanation.
Yeah, it becomes a whole it becomes a semantic argument. It becomes a fucking McGee rigmarole, and it's just like, ugh. Why? I don't want to deal with this, bro. Fuck that.
That allows you to make better decisions. Okay? Elite competition, meritocracy. And the idea here is that if you have very effective administration, that allows for local leaders.
Meritocracy. Okay, that's rich.
Yeah,
again,
there is no meritocracy.
That's not a thing that existed back then. We're not in a capitalist system, but whatever.
Networks, okay? So things like roads, things like postal networks. Okay, so the Persians create the first global postage system. And it was really effective where you want to send
Mongols were very effective at this as well.
What would happen is you would have these royal roads where people would ride on horses and they could stop at basically a hostile rest and then keep on going, okay? And that way you can
as with the Mongols.
Information from one quarter empire to the other. And the last is to divide and rule. Divide and rule is really important. So what they did was they basically had different power centers within a region. So you had the satraps, which were local governors, but then you also had the local, you also had the bureaucrats. Okay, you also had the royal representatives. So these are different factions within a region. Okay, so divide and rule is probably the most effective way.
Mostly it'd be like localized tax collectors, generally speaking. Like sometimes it was like government bureaucrats, but generally speaking, they were tax collectors.
Control and empire. Okay, so now let's move on to Israel. Okay, we know about the Persian Empire, how they managed their system and why they're so effective.
This is where all the revisionism comes in, by the way.
And the Bible came about because David needed to justify, legitimize his rule. And after Bronze Age collapsed, David created a Davidic kingdom in the Levant because Egypt, Anatolia, Mesopotamia were all preoccupied, right? But because the Levant is so important,
so let's pause for a second.
Doesn't even last that long. It lasts like.
Yeah.
David is not known to have actually existed. There is like almost no archaeological proof. If there's any, it's scant and it's heavily disputed by all kinds of scholars, Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, you name it. They have all like it's scant. They have been doing archaeology in Palestine for years. They haven't found.
Still haven't found him. Like we have no idea. Like he could have existed, because again we're basing this off of the Bible, which has had. How many fucking revisions throughout all of history? How many fucking changes?
Thousands.
Yeah, thousands. This story could have changed in 70 trillion fucking ways at this point. We have no idea. Like, we just have to kind of be like, I mean, we have to try to find the body to see if King David really existed. Even if they did, how would they be able to confirm that it's King David? That's another question in of itself, even if they were to find it. Like, more than likely, the dude was just like some probable mythological figure to, again, like I've said before, when a lot of these people told these stories, because this is how early history worked, a lot of people told stories to their next of kin. And their next of kin would say that to them, their next of kin, so on and so forth. Not everyone's going to 100% like remember the details of that story 100%, so there's going to be changes based off of what they remember. Yeah, it's a game of telephone. That's the fucking problem. And there will be, and it won't necessarily be 1,000% consistent from generation to generation to generation. Like, maybe there was David. Maybe. Maybe it was like not a David.
But the story might have been...
Maybe it was a Jacob. Maybe it was another guy. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, who knows? And the other thing as well, so these years and like this timeline, a lot of this comes from like interpreting verses in the Torah and the Bible, obviously the Old Testament. So they, sometimes in the Old Testament it'll say, well, 70 years later this happens. So they like get it from the verse of like how many years, and they estimate it. And obviously monks and scholars have been debating this for centuries. So anyways, my point is that and this is, again, as a Christian, how I take all these narratives. I make sure I remember it's a narrative, and it's a guiding narrative. It's been a guiding narrative for society for a long time.
Yes, you do not
Religion always is.
Yeah, you do not take this as, like, literal gospel. You don't, right? It's it's meant to be a guide. It's a tool.
Yeah, it's a narrative upon like you have an example, say, of Jesus Christ. Now, do we know who Jesus Christ was, like the actual person? Do we have? No, we don't. We don't
have any evidence.
But the living example of Christ, or the example of Christ that is in your Bible, is like, okay, this is an example of how to be a better human being, how to treat your neighbors, how to treat yourself, and all that kind of stuff. It's more of a guide for your life and a metaphor for your life, and I think that's much more important to me as a Christian than all this historical accuracy. I tend to. Because the problem is you get bogged down in misinterpretation and, of course, revisionism, which is bad. You don't want revisionism.
Yeah, it becomes like a whole semantic fucking thing. It's like, what did this person mean with this particular word in this phrase? It's like, I don't fucking know, man. It could mean this, it could mean that, it could mean my fucking left toenail. I don't know. It could be anything.
80, 200 years, okay? After Solomon, David's son, dies, Israel is divided into two parts. The northern kingdom, which gets conquered by Assyria, as well as Judah, okay, Jerusalem, which tries to maintain the kingdom, but doesn't last very long. After Solomon history, the Israelites are being pulled in different directions, okay? The Anatolians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, because they're strategically very important. And so what's really hard for these empires is, how do we maintain control over Jerusalem? Okay? And they try different techniques. They try burning down their city centers, okay? So the northern kingdom was destroyed. You might have heard of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. They tried taking hostages. Okay? But because this region is so volatile, nothing really works. And so Jerusalem, they just went rebelling. Okay? So this is the kingdom of Judah. And what happens is, for the longest time, the Babylonians are trying to deal with the Israelites. Okay, so they take hostages. Okay? They take hostages, like thousands of them, and move them to Babylon, where they become scribes, where they become farmers, where they become merchants. Okay, but again, the region is so strategically important that Jerusalem, they switch loyalties all the time. Eventually, the Babylonians are so pissed off that they decide to burn down their temple. Okay, and so at this point in history, the Israelites are now gone. Does that make sense? The Israelites are gone now.
So I'm assuming what. Yeah, like
not gone. They're dispersed. Yeah, they were dispersed.
Yeah, this is the first.
I guess that's what he means by gone.
Yeah, this is like the first exile, if I were to recall correctly. Yeah, this is the first exile of the Jews from Israel, or from Palestine or Israel or whatever. And the burning down of the temples. It's not exactly how that works. Where it's like the destruction of the main power center. It's not exactly how that works, right? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, it's like narrative versus what actually happened. Like again, we'd have to go back into archaeology to see what actually happened. But I guess this is one of the problems. Is like this is where I think he's getting a lot of like I said, the evangelical interpretation, which comes again from Herzl, right, from Zionism. So so a lot of this stuff is like revision to make it seem like this one group of people are the most oppressed on the planet and are the most special and chosen and like it's. Yeah, it's a problem because
he keeps hyper specifically fixating on Jerusalem being this one highly important sort of kingdom. So that's not exactly how that fucking works, because there was a bunch of other kingdoms in the area who also have their own fucking interests and local fucking monarchs, even within his own map.
Yep.
We don't know when, but Babylon destroyed Jerusalem because they cannot. They tried many techniques to try to control Jerusalem. They can't do it. These guys are too rebellious. It's too strategically important, so they destroy. So they decide, you want to screw this? We'll just destroy the city. Okay. So when this happens, it's really important to understand the Israelites are gone. Okay? The people are still around. The identity of the Israelites are now gone.
Not exactly how that works.
539. Cyrus the Great conquers Babylon. Okay, and he says, I want the Israelites to return to Jerusalem. It's called the Edict of Cyrus. All right, and this is celebrated in the Bible. What is controversial is why would he do such a thing? Okay? Because again, the Israelites are not gone. These guys who went to Babylonia, they may still keep their religion a bit, but they no longer have their land. They have changed as a people. Okay, so as an Israelite, you pray in the temple. The temple's not destroyed, so now you pray in the synagogue. Okay, so the people have changed a great deal. So the question now is, why would Cyrus the Great go to Babylon and say, you know what, I want you Israelites to return to Jerusalem. I want you to reconstitute the nation of Israel. Why would he do that? Okay, so this is going to be a debate that will never ever end, okay? So the Bible tells us that Cyrus the Great did this because God told him to do it. Very really simple. God says, I love my people, the Israelites, send them home. Okay? And Cyrus the Great says, yes, of course, you're the great God, I'll do so, okay? Guys, that's how it happened, okay? All right, so there are different explanations.
Obviously.
Maybe the idea is that Cyrus wants to show all the Persian Empire, I'm religiously tolerant. You can practice your religion, you can celebrate your religion. That's what the Persian Empire is, an open, tolerant, generous empire, okay? That's true. What's also true is that Cyrus found himself as a righteous and merciful king who wanted to be generous to everyone, okay? So he saw the Israelites want to home and says, well, go home, okay? It's also possible that there's a faction within the Israelites who supported his Babylon takeover, okay? I don't know if this is true or not true, but we can consider that as a possibility.
Yeah, we don't really have, like, yeah, okay, the hypothetical. This is possible that there were interests within Babylon who wanted Cyrus, because again, like I've said before, envoys, information gets exchanged with a lot of these, like, local sort of, like, rulers of clans of different parts of the city, blah, 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 blah. They talk with one another. They may be more supportive. They may not be as supportive. It really, really fucking depends on a lot of context. And this is a lot of stuff that's, generally speaking, lost throughout fucking history. We ain't got no idea.
Now, just real quick, we're talking about Cyrus, right? About Cyrus or, Cyrus the Great or whatever he's called. The Emperor Cyrus. So I'm sharing something right now.
Yep,
this is actually... Now, many people in history have heard of this, the Cyrus cylinder. So you've probably seen this artifact, right, from that time period. And this is an edict from Cyrus. This is exactly the same thing he's talking about. So this was written in cuneiform, obviously. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of this is the actual translation. Again, the British Museum has possession of this because, of course, the British steal everything. But at least we have it, and at least we have a historical translation. So now, if you look at where there is nothing in here that represents Jewish people, that references Jewish people. They're not even mentioned in here. It's not even mentioned on the.
Well, that certainly throws a wrench in the narrative, doesn't it?
where the even where this concept of Cyrus the Great wanted to liberate the Jewish people and let them go back to Jerusalem and rebuild, it comes from a particular passage of the Cyrus Edict. So basically, where was it? I had it highlighted and I don't know. Is it return? Yeah. So it says here, in the English translation, from Shwana I sent back to their places the city, the land of this land. So basically, whose shrines had earlier become dilapidated, the gods who lived therein, and made permanent sanctuaries for them. I collected together all their people and returned them to their settlements. There it is. And the gods of the land of Sumer and Akkad. And so basically made all the gods that I returned to the sanctuaries, which I guess this is like a
The
reference to
rebuilding
also,
of all the temples, so then the home
that would
of the
include
god would be able to go back there, so they can have people worship them. That's the
that
logic.
is the main passage in here that's often referenced, from the Cyrus Cylinder. That's the main passage that's often referenced by
Yeah,
evangelicals and obviously twisted
yeah,
for
because yeah, so
this
far,
interpretation.
yeah,
Yeah.
because guess what? There is zero mention of the Israelites. No
Yeah,
mention.
if I search for Judah, if I search for that, and now obviously this is
God of Israel.
that's not
This
well,
could
that's
be
not
a
in the document. That's the curator's comments.
oh, curator's comments. Yes, so that's not within the document. Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and even the curator, this is the curator from the British Museum, who said there is no acknowledgement that Cyrus himself worshipped the Iranian god Ahura Mazda. He is a tool. Okay.
He's a
Oh,
tool
so basically,
Marduk, just as in the biblical book of Ezra, Klein. He is presented as the savant god of Israel, who's instructed to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem and allow the Jews deported by
Nebuchadnezzar,
Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar the second.
Yeah, he's
Yep. So
one of
basically,
the final great rulers of Babylonia. Was Nebuchadnezzar the
yes.
second?
And again, a lot of people. One of the other problems, Professor Jiang says here that this was the first declaration of human rights. Not really. This really wasn't. There's a lot of skepticism on that part because at the time, what human rights are being granted here other than return to where you were deported from? Like, there's no other liberation going on here whatsoever. So yeah, there's really a lot of the Cyrus edict is more just asserting his power basically and saying, well, I'm not like the previous guy. I'm
I'm
not
not
as
as much of a.
brutal
I am not as
and
much of a tyrant because if I
yeah,
do recall, Nebuchadnezzar was kind of a fucking asshole.
exactly.
He was not
So
great.
he's like, I'm better. And of course, yes, everybody who, worships your various gods and all, you can return to where you were deported from. That's essentially what this is. So, again, the revisionism from, and again, this is evangelical revisionism. They overblow the sort of religious tolerance and the, and stuff, from the Edict of Cyrus. It wasn't actually that.
Yeah, and because we know
Sorry.
that. Yeah, and we know that one of his main references was the Book of Ezra, right, within the
Yeah.
sources that he listed, and he's just taking it as again gospel, which you should never do, ever.
Yeah, because again, in the book of Ezra, so I want to share in the screen, but in Ezra chapter 1, it says the second verse is, "Thus says King Cyrus of Persia, the Lord God of heaven has given me all kingdoms of the earth. He has charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah." Again, there's nothing in the edict that says that. There's no recorded mention of this. This is again just
It's just a story.
yeah, it is, I guess, a revision of what happened, I guess, which again, that happened all the time back then. So,
Hmm.
yeah, there's no historical basis for that verse
Yeah, exactly.
that we know of.
That we know of.
Yep.
That the Israelites in Babylon supported his takeover, and so to thank them, Cyrus said, "Fine, I'll give you back Jerusalem." Another possibility is that when Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon, he discovered that, you know what, these Israelites are really good administrators. And this is true throughout history because remember, the Israelites had their Bible, and the religion requires them to study the Bible. And as we discussed, the Bible is one of debate, openness, asking questions. And so these are very literate intellectuals, and they rise up very high in the Babylon administration. But this is true throughout history, where Jewish people will rise very high in all empires, including the Islamic Empire, including the American Empire, okay? I think the best reason for happening is divide and rule, okay? So the idea is that you need to control the Levant. Because Levant gives you access to Egypt, which is historically the wealthiest part of the world. Okay, whoever controls Egypt controls the world. So what you do?
Wait, okay, he's not wrong here, but he's also he's contradicting. He's contradicting himself a little bit. He's also said that Mesopotamia was also the richest part of the world, but also same with Anatolia. Now, again, this is where it comes down to like certain differing parts of points within fucking history. Generally speaking, the consensus is he who controls the Nile controls the fucking world. Reason for that: the Nile, naturally very fertile. You can grow a lot of crops. A lot of trade can be facilitated through the Nile. Lots of trade can be facilitated through it. And it's very, very easy to sort of just like build centers of economics and culture and knowledge and whatnot because of just how much of a natural breadbasket, specifically Egypt and the Nile, broadly speaking, are. You know, primitive accumulation here, folks. Plain and fucking simple. That's how a lot of like early societies, generally speaking, started to sprout up in a lot of these areas that naturally were able to grow lots and lots of fucking food. Someone, generally speaking, would gather more of that food and say, like, well, look at me, I have way more food. Why don't we start getting together and growing even more food together? That's the general sort of like starting basis of the construction of cities.
Yep.
Do is you set up a group of people in the Levant that are only loyal to you. Okay, does that make sense? Okay? You set up people in the Levant that only exist because you, the empire, allow them to exist. If you, the empire, did not support them, the locals, everyone in that region would get rid of them right away, okay? And that's why we have the Jews. So the Jews were invented by the Persians to control the Levant. The Jews is actually a Persian term, okay? So before the Jews were, of course, Israelites. Now we have the Jews.
No, I don't think that's exactly I disagree with that.
Yeah,
no.
I don't think that's exactly how that works. So
no.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think what he's conflating. So in the biblical narrative, like, or I guess in the Torah, right? If you look back in the book of Genesis, right, you have the story of Abraham, right? So Abraham actually came from Uruk, right? He was from Uruk originally, right? And he had, I guess the narrative is that God guided him to the promised land of Canaan, right, or Palestine, whatever.
Yeah,
you want to call it.
It would be Canaan at this point.
Yeah, Canaan. And so obviously there were already people there. The Bible, in fact, mentions there were already people in Canaan. It was not an empty land or undiscovered land. The Canaanites were there. And obviously Abraham had come from what is now Persia. So what I'm saying is that I think Jiang is conflating that narrative with, the Persia, the word Jew is Jewish is actually from Persia. It's like, no, he's conflating that. And on what basis? Like, I haven't heard this interpretation from even evangelicals. I've never heard this interpretation.
Which is interesting because he, broadly speaking, in one of the other videos that we saw before when we looked at some fucking junk tent, he also was just like, hey, this is the book of Abraham, here's how it works. And he had the, like, more accurate fucking interpretations of the book of Abraham and how it exactly worked. None of this like nonsense about like Persians being what exactly a Jewish being like a Persian term made up by the Achaemenids or something. Like he never said that at all whatsoever. I think this is a completely new construction. It's a completely new thing.
Yeah. Anyway,
this is Jerusalem. And as you can see, what's really important to understand is that this is actually a really small part of the Levant. But this part is specifically for the Jews. And it's part of this Persian province called beyond the river. And they call it the province of Yahoo. That's why we have the term Jews, okay? Because they are part of the province of Yahoo. And what's really important to understand is they're surrounded by enemies. The Sumerians are Israelites who have stayed in the Levant. Can you understand? So most people around them are, in fact, Israelites who adapted to local circumstances. That means that they practice different religions. That also means that they married foreign women as well. But they still consider themselves as Israelites, okay? Does that make sense, guys? So what happens is that these exiles from Babylon, they come back and they say, no, we're the true Israelites. You guys are the false Israelites. The reason why we're true is we've stayed loyal to our religion. Okay? So what's going to happen over the next 2 decades is almost a civil war between Israelites who stayed and Israelites who left but come back. All right? And this is what the Persian Empire wants in order to maintain stability in the Levant. Right? Because you have this small minority of exiles from Babylon who've come back, and they're in conflict with everyone else. Right? This is the divine rule. Okay, so
there's a couple problems here.
Yeah.
First of all, if you go back to that map, so Yes, it is true that the Canaanite or Israelite peoples lived in the ancient world was like this. They lived in various kingdoms or whatever. The thing now he's bringing up a narrative where he's saying, well, everybody wanted to go to war with the real Jewish people, right? So, and so they were like these surrounding enemies. Again, this is a very similar narrative to what you hear from BB and from all these,
Fundy
all these
types.
fundies now, right? And what Kahanis will say. So this is almost like a Kahanis narrative, in a way. Uh, the reality most likely was that the existing, Canaanite peoples, I wouldn't say they were like warring with each other. I wouldn't exactly say that. Now, certainly, did their leaders war with each other? Probably. They probably,
Yeah,
just like it's just old sort of empire
that
noble
happens all
type
the
stuff.
fucking time. Like some random
There was nothing special about this.
yeah, like or some random gobbledygook can just all of a sudden happen. It's like, oh, now we're gonna fight each other. This happened all the time during the Hellenistic period with the Greeks. Like city states would, I don't know, sometimes get like 10 dudes and just have a scrap. They would just do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
So what I'm getting at is that he's saying, oh, this specific special group of people who were exiled and now returning, they were the chosen ones, and everybody was their enemy. It's like, this kind of revisionist narrative is not.
if
First of all, it's
anything,
not accurate.
yeah,
Yeah.
if anything, because this is a thing that also happened throughout Roman history, whenever there was a lot of migration waves, typically by a lot of barbarian tribes, very often they would have like impetuous hostile warriors who would just like go around and fucking loot and stuff like that. This happened
Exactly.
very often, but there was these migration waves of these barbarians because they were pushed out of their homes because of othering sort of reasons. That's more than likely what happened. They were just like, "Who the fuck are all these jabronis coming into our fucking kingdom? Like, fuck out of here! Like, what the fuck is this?"
Yep. All right. Well, let's move ahead. It
Those
looks like
people
he gets into
around them
scripture
are in
later.
fact
So
Israelites who adapted to local circumstances. And that means that they practice different religions. That also means that they marry foreign women as well. But they still consider themselves as Israelites, okay? Right? Does that make sense, guys? So what happens is that these exiles from Babylon, they come back and they say, no, we're the true Israelites. You guys are the false Israelites. The reason why we're true is we stayed loyal to our religion. Okay? So what's going to happen over the next few decades is almost a civil war between Israelites who stayed and Israelites who left but come back. Right? And this is what the Persian Empire wants in order to maintain stability in the Levant. Right? Because you have this small minority of exiles from Babylon who've come back and they're in conflict with everyone else. Right? This is the divine rule. Okay, so could you, sorry, let me. Okay. So could you help me read the Bible, okay?
Okay.
All right, so we're going to read two books of the Bible. They're called Ezra and Nehemiah, okay? And these two books are really important. And they're not really discussed that often by scholars. But Ezra and Nehemiah shows us how
I wonder why they might not be talked about that much by scholars. Are these really like core tenets of like theological debate in fucking scripture? Boy Meets Mini, do you know the Book of Nehemiah and Ezra?
I mean, they can be. I mean, there's obviously a lot of debate as far as like archaeological, right? Yeah, truth of how close the biblical narrative is to the archaeology and what they've discovered as far as like historically. Yeah, that is a point of debate. I wouldn't say so much that it's a point of debate about who the actual Jewish people are. I feel like that's more of a Zionist thing. Anyways, the what biblical scholars are mainly looking for is they're looking for linked narratives. So and I hate to quote Jordan Peterson, but a lot of even the lefty biblical scholars will tell you the Bible is kind of sort of a hyperlinked text, right? Because there's a lot of references to old prophecies, or there's a lot of tiebacks to Moses and Abraham. Like there's a lot of hyperlinking going on between the various books and prophetic letters and stuff in the Torah and the Bible.
Right.
And in fact, the story of Jesus is actually a fulfillment of earlier prophecy. So with this specifically, I would say the main debate would be, who are the real sort of Israelites and Jewish people, because you could say that a lot of the other sort of when he showed that map of like, the blue zone where the exiles had returned to Jerusalem, and then you had all the other like Israelite peoples around. Like you could say that, okay, those other peoples maybe were more secular, or they weren't as like hyper religious as the returning exiles were, and that was the main point of conflict. Like that's sort of where I sit with that. I think where the debate really emerges, where I've seen the debate really rage on about it, is sort of like a what a lot of pastors will do. They'll take this time period of like the exiles returning, and they'll say, "Oh, Christians today, you live in a secular, materialistic, sinful world of non-believing trash, right? And you guys are the light of the world. You're like the exiles. You're coming back." And so pastors will use this as sort of a narrative to basically foment their congregations to, into fundamentalist thinking, and to think, oh, we're the chosen ones, we're better than everybody. I've warned against this, and I keep making this warning. Nobody's listening. I hope more and more Christians listen to this, because what essentially is happening particularly in America with churches, is they're creating a caste system. That's essentially what they're doing by, saying we're the chosen people, and you're creating a caste system.
Yeah, we're the ones who are on top because our blood is this particular thing. We were born in this like particular sort of position or whatever. Yeah, like you're saying, armor and quills. Practically all of the stuff written during and right after the Babylonian captivity, including the Mia, you can just safely assume it probably didn't happen. Yeah, because
it didn't happen. It didn't happen the way was documented, right? It was probably not as epic as the narrative.
Not as probably because history is written by the victors. Narrativization is a thing that happens all the fucking time throughout history. So it comes down to a lot of historians, generally speaking, saying like, hey, here's this thing that's sort of happening that's kind of like this, but not really. It probably, generally speaking, with a lot of numbers in armies, generally speaking, it's very, very often over exaggerated to make it seem more epic than it probably actually was.
Persia helped the Jews to reconstitute their nation.
Yeah, we read this verse earlier.
And by studying these two books, it will give us insight into how current people in the nation of Israel think, and then we can analyze how they will behave moving forward. Okay. All right. So can you read this? This is the beginning of the book of Ezra. Okay.
In the first year of King Cyrus of Persia, in order that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished, the Lord stirred up the spirit of King Cyrus of Persia, so that he sent a herald throughout all his kingdom.
So Cyrus the Great is considered the Messiah by the Jews.
Yeah, it's perfect.
The Jews are extremely thankful for Cyrus, because not only does he allow them to go back to Jerusalem, but he also finances the rebuilding of the temple. Okay? But when this happens, when they go back and try to rebuild the temple, the locals get pissed off. Okay? Because who are you people? You're stealing our religion. What's going on here? Okay? And this creates a lot of conflict. That's good for the Persian Empire because
that's what I said.
They want the conflict, right? As part of the divide and rule strategy. Okay. All right.
Captions.
When the builders laid the foundation of the temple of the Lord, the priests in their vestments were stationed to praise the Lord with trumpets, and the Levites, the son of
the Levites are important. Levites are actually the priest class of the Israelites. Okay.
The sons of Asaph, with symbols according to the direction of King David of Israel, and they sang responsively, praising and giving thanks to the Lord. For he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever towards Israel. And all the people responded with a great shout when they praised the Lord, because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. But many of the priests and Levites and heads of families, old people who had seen the first house on its foundations, wept with a loud voice when they saw this house, though many shouted aloud for joy, so that the people could not distinguish the sound of the joyful shout from the sound of the people's weeping, for the people shouted so loudly that the sound was heard far away.
This is the happiest moment in Jewish history, when they rebuild the temple, okay, what they call the Second Temple. And this is important because the Second Temple was destroyed. And what they want to do now in Israel is build the Third Temple. And this is important because the Third Temple sits on the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is the third holiest site in the Islamic world. So what this Bible is telling us that eventually the Israelis will destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque, so that they can build the Third Temple, or what they call the Temple of Solomon. Okay? All right, can you continue?
From when?
Yeah, when the adversaries
of Judah and Benjamin heard that the returned exiles were building a temple to the Lord, the God of Israel, they approached Zerubbabel and the heads of families and said to them, "Let us build with you, for we worship your gods as you do."
Okay, so they're saying, we're Israelites just as you guys, okay? We stayed, but you guys left. So actually, we're better than you are, okay? Because we stayed, whereas you left. Okay, keep on going.
And we have been sacrificing to him ever since the days of King Esarhaddon of Assyria, who brought us here. But Zerubbabel, Joshua, and the rest of the heads of families in Israel said to them, "You shall have no part with us in building a house to our God, but we alone will build to the Lord, the God of Israel, as King Cyrus of Persia had commanded us."
This is really weird, right? You're all Israelites. Why is it that no, we are the true Israelites, you guys are the false Israelites, and so you can't help us? Okay? Why is there this conflict going on? Right? That's strange. And so,
just a second.
Yeah. So basically, the reason why they probably were saying that is because didn't he say that earlier? It's just like, why are you guys in here cramping our fucking style? Like, we were here before you guys. Why are you building a bunch of temples
the reason
here?
why.
And then all of a sudden they started joining along. Like, how? How do they fucking reconcile that sort of contradiction? Like, is he now going to try to get into that? Like, what exactly is going on here? Yeah, notably, that's also the time frame you get some of the most ahistorical accounts of Battle of Jericho, for instance. That's also a good point there, Armor and Quells.
Yeah, which there's been by the way, no archaeological evidence for.
Yeah, zero.
Part of the approach strategy. Okay, dividing rule. Keep on going.
Then the people of the land discouraged the people of Judah and made them afraid to build, and they bribed officials to frustrate the plan throughout the reign of King Cyrus of Persia and until the reign of King Darius of Persia.
Okay, so they try to build the temple. It doesn't really work out because there's so much opposition, right? The Jews who come back from Babylon is like, we're the real Israelites, so only we can touch the temple. No one else can participate. And the others are like, this is wrong. We should all participate in the building of the temple. This is one religion, okay? So it seems as though these Jews from Babylon, they're actually imperial agents who are trying to sow discontent within the region.
What?
So
this is a bit of a leap in logic, I think.
So when he says it's all one religion, no, you have to remember that most religions, right, and even like Christianity, Christianity is very fractured, as you know. How many denominations, and you have Orthodox, Catholic, Protestant, etc. Hundreds, maybe over 1,000 at this point. And then you have fringe movements and all kinds of stuff. You have to recognize that early Judaism was also the same way. It wasn't all unified. They at this point, a lot of the foundational sort of beliefs and stuff were still being negotiated, and a lot of it again was based upon hereditary lineages and tribes, and you had this priest caste that developed, the Levites, to try to unite everybody under a single theology, and that was still in development. So essentially, what you're seeing here is this is like the process of development, right, of like early Judaism. That's essentially what you're seeing here. And so when Jiang says, they were all one people, they were all one religion, that's not how the people of the time saw it at that time. There was a lot of, again, most religions at that time were very fractured and localized. They weren't as
especially with like a lot of the pagan religions that also existed during those times. It depends, right? It's local customs, culture, even politics as well. Jung is kind of narrativizing here a little bit to try to make it seem like it's an easier.
He's heavily narrativizing.
Yeah. Okay, obviously. But he's narrativizing here specifically to try to make it seem like it's a more easier subject to broach. That's why he's doing it.
Sorry, this is a bit long, okay, but can you try to read?
Okay. This is a copy of the letter that King and... Can you help me?
Artaxerxes, okay? Artaxerxes is this great warrior in Persia, okay? Great warrior. Keep on going.
Gave to the priest Ezra, the scribe, a scholar of the text of the commandments of the Lord and his status for Israel.
Okay, so Ezra is one of these Israelites who comes from a family that was exiled to Babylon. Okay, but he's a priest and he's an intellectual. So he is considered actually the creator of the Bible that we have today. Okay, keep on going.
Artaxerxes, king of kings. To the priest Ezra, the scribe of the law of the God of heaven. Peace.
No, that's not true. Ezra wasn't the creator. Okay, so first of all, the Bible was created post hoc, post the life of Jesus or whatever that time period. It was created initially by the Council of Nicaea, later, codifications of like the various councils like Trent. But the Torah, if you want to talk about the Torah, I wouldn't know. If you talk to a lot of Jewish scholars, they will tell you that the Torah wasn't really like people will say, Ezra created the Torah. No, that's not the case. The Torah was built up over time by various priests, and of course, once a caste system emerged and you had the Levites, they were the ones sort of driving the driving the sort of the canon of the Torah. So they were the Levites basically were the ones who built it over time. To say Ezra assembled it all in his own lifetime is insane. That is insane.
Yeah, I don't think that happened.
That to one person. Like any rabbinical scholar will get on your case if you say that.
Yeah, it's something that's syncretized over, I think, probably generations of rabbis. Like, it's not...
Yeah, centuries.
Yeah, like, it took forever. Like, Jung is just trying to be like... Because, again, he talked about greats earlier, right? He's playing directly into fucking great man theory here. That's what he's doing.
Unfortunately.
Any
And
of the
yes, you're
people,
right. Yahweh and El were so because again, when you look in the Old Testament and you see the many names of God, it's also in the Quran as well. In Arabic, they have the same names for God. There's like 35 different names. And a lot of those again are syncretization. You can see the syncretizing, right? Because Yahweh and El and Adonai were all Canaanite gods that then got syncretized into this sort of omniscient, immaterial god that didn't have an idol, right?
Same
So
with all the pagan gods, right? Eventually, they all just got thrown in as like, actually, it's just one guy. So then we don't have to make like temples to all these different guys. We just have one guy,
yep.
just one guy instead. It seems easier that way.
of Israel, of their priests or Levites in my kingdom, who freely offers to go to
Yes,
Jerusalem.
and
and go with
Asherah,
me. For you
Baal.
are,
Yep.
you are sent by the king and his 7 counselors to make inquiries about Judah and Jerusalem according to the law of your God, which is in your hand. And
I
also,
believe Baal is also the main god of the fucking Phoenicians as well, of the Carthaginians, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
to convey the silver and gold that the king and his counselors have freely offered to the God of Israel, whose dwelling is in Jerusalem, with all the silver and gold that you shall find in the whole province of Babylonia, and with the free will offerings of the people and the priests given willingly to the house of their God in Jerusalem. With this money, then, you shall, with all diligence, buy bulls, rams, and lambs, and their grain offering and their drink offerings, and you shall offer them on the altar of the house of your God in Jerusalem.
Okay, so this is really important. Okay, this is a letter by King Artaxerxes authorizing Ezra to build the second temple. Okay, what is important? Because this is called the Balfour Declaration, 1917. What's going to happen is that the British government.
Oh no! Here we
Hi,
go. I told
Balfour.
you he was going to tie this in.
We
Hi, Balfour.
actually, just read this, okay?
I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the cabinet. His Majesty's government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation.
Okay, this is almost.
Oh, and here, yep, there it is. Oh, and this is how we're trying to, because again, Herzl's interpretation of a lot of this, like, differing fucking books and whatnot, is rather dubious at best, right? Because again, Zionism doesn't really pertain to any of the lessons within the Torah or the Bible whatsoever. They don't give a shit about any of that stuff, right? It is about a political ideology. Balfour is doing this because, again, he himself was also an anti-Semite. He did not like Jewish people. Why? Because, broadly speaking, in a culture of anti-Semitism, which started to emerge back in the 1850s, by the fucking French, always blame the fucking French, started to emerge and was spreading throughout the entirety of Europe. Balfour was also heavily fucking anti-Semitic himself. So if he could work alongside with someone, say, like Theodor Herzl and the Zionist sort of representatives to send all the Jews to Palestine and say out of England and the rest of Europe, then that for him is an acceptable outcome because, again, bro was an anti-Semite, right? And Theodor Herzl used that for the express purpose of furthering his own political fucking ideology.
Yeah. And one of the things that actually came out of that too, this was in England, and we're talking about the Balfour Declaration, right? We're talking about the UK, about England and Britain. Have you ever heard of the Schofield Bible?
No.
So the Schofield, so there's a theologian in England. He was a very, very fundamentalist. If you've ever heard of the theology of dispensationalism, which basically is the foundation of like Fundy Christianity, of modern fundamentalist Christianity, it came from this guy. And that Bible was first published in the early 20th century. So you're talking 1915, 1916 in England. So the Schofield Bible basically what dispensationalism is, it's the belief that between creation and revelation, the rapture or whatever. So this is where the idea of rapture comes from, by the way. It's mainly from Schofield. And there would be 7 distinct eras of God's dealing with man, all like the flood and all those, and obviously the resurrection of Christ being the 6th one. And that these eras are a framework for synthesizing the message of the Bible. So basically, this is where actually sort of the beginnings of like Christian Zionism came about, was because of this particular edition of the Bible published by John Schofield. Yeah. Yeah, Schofield gets a lot of my ire, as you could probably imagine, as a
Right.
Christian. Yeah. Oh boy, yeah, he was a real problem.
Yeah, and Jiang, so like Armor and Quills. Oh, yeah, 1000%. He is very uncritical of the entirety of the history of the fucking Bible, right? I mean, those are the
Yep.
main sources that he's pulling all of this from.
Almost like the Artaxerxes separation, right? You see how in the Bible, Artaxerxes writes a letter to Esther and says, hey, I authorize you to go back to Jerusalem and build the second temple, right?
How is he
So what's
making
happening
that
is that
Artaxerxes letter the equivalent of the Balfour Declaration?
Yeah, this
What
is
is the-
buddy, we're off by like 2,500 years here, man. Like,
Well, not only years,
What?
like totally different circumstances. Like for example, this is totally different circumstances. Like the in this case, right? Actually, the British were kind of doing the opposite. The British said, we're anti-Semitic. We don't want Jewish people here. We want them to return to a homeland, and the Zionists want that too. So because we only want Christians in England, so this is almost an exile from Britain, right? Whereas Cyrus's declaration, or like Artaxerxes, I guess, letter as well, declaration was to return people from exile. So Britain was doing an exile
right,
of,
exactly.
of, of, of Jews in the UK. Yeah, that's what they were doing. So these two are not the same. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure.
using the Bible as a script in order to facilitate their geopolitical ambitions. Okay, this is why reading the Bible is important. Because once you read the Bible, you understand the Bible, you compare it to historical development, you're able to see the connections. And if you're able to see connections, you can also predict how they will develop over time. Okay? So this Bible declaration creates
Predictive
the
history.
current nation of
Yeah,
Israel,
this is stupid.
which started in 1948. So, like before, the nation of Israel was created by the British as part of their geopolitical strategy of trying to conquering the Middle East.
This is just Christian
on.
Zionism.
Yeah, that's not- by the way,
what
that-
John
yeah.
Hagee preaches.
Yeah, this is just not the fucking case. That was not why they created the fucking nation of Israel. No, like the UN created fucking Israel as a way to have some kind of reparations. That's kind of the idea, like reparation to the Jewish people for the fucking Holocaust, right?
Well, that and
that and
the
also a
other
bunch of
factor
different
was-
wars. The six,
Well,
like
there
the
was
Arab,
that.
the Arab Wars.
Well, that and there was the uprising in 1936, right? The Palestine uprising
Yes.
of 36. Yep.
That created the enclave within Gaza and forced a lot of Palestinians also into the West Bank as well.
But it's really important for you guys to bear in mind as we move forward. All right, can you read the highlighted part, okay?
Oh my God, I'm too ashamed and embarrassed to lift my face to you, my God, for our iniquities have risen higher than our heads.
Okay, so this is a speech by Ezra, okay? He returns to Jerusalem, and now he has to reflect on what God wants, okay? So he's going to discuss why God exiled him Babylon, why God has allowed him to return, and what God wants him to do, okay? Keep on going.
And our guilt has mounted up to the heavens. From the days of our ancestors to this day, we have been
That's
deep in
a
guilt.
lot of
And for our
reading.
iniquities, we, our kings and our priests, have been handed over to the kings of the lands, to the sword, to captivity, to plundering, and to utter shame, as it now the case.
Okay, so why did the Israelites get exiled to Babylon? Because they refused to obey and worship Yahweh. Yahweh sent prophets. Yahweh warned them, but they kept on worshiping false gods. They kept on.
No, that's
sinning.
like
And so Yahweh said,
no. That's
I'm pretty
not
sure
the
that's
reason
completely
why-
wrong, right?
No, that's not the reason why. I mean, that would probably be like the reason you pass down to your kids, like, hey, these are the sins of the past. This is why we got exiled. Like, it's actually because we disobeyed God or whatever. It's like, no.
No,
That's
it's
just the reason. That's what you tell your kids, right? This isn't the actual history. The actual history is, conquest and empires fighting each. Like, it's what he was talking about earlier.
Yeah,
So
unironically.
it seems like Jiang, or whatever fake professor you are, you were sort of walking back on your previous theory that you were pushing, which was the theory of like elites. What was it? The elite.
elite overproduction, basically.
Elite overproduction. Yes. You're kind of going against that. You're like, well, actually, it's because they disobeyed God. It's like, no, it's you could you call it elite overproduction. You can call it nobles and kings in society, jockeying for position and authority, and using war as one of their many, negotiating tools, I guess. Completely backtracking on what he said before.
For sure.
Unbelievable.
you know what? I really need to teach these guys a lesson, and that's why they exiled them to Babylon, so they can reflect and learn and grow as a people. Okay? Keep on going.
But now for a brief moment, favor has been shown by the Lord our God, who has left us a remnant and given us a stake in his holy place, in order that he may brighten our eyes and grant us a little sustenance in our slavery. For we are slaves, yet our God has not forsaken us in our slavery, but has extended to us his steadfast love before the kings of Persia, to give us new life to set up the house of our God, to repair its ruins, and to give us a wall in Judah.
And Jerusalem.
And in Jerusalem.
Okay, so Ezra's saying, okay, yeah, we screwed up, but God is forgiving, and now we have a second chance to prove ourselves. to God. How do we prove ourselves to God? By making sure that we only worship Him, okay? So this beginning of Jewish monotheism, okay? Which is heavily influenced by Zoroastrianism. So in other words, the religion that the Jews practice from now on is not the religion of the Israelites, which is polytheistic. They will now practice a new religion that's heavily influenced by Zoroastrianism, okay? Which is the Persian religion. Keep on going.
And now, our God, what shall we say after this? For we have forsaken your commandments, which you are commanded by your servants, the prophets, saying, the land that you are entering to possess is a land unclean with the pollutions of the people of the lands, with their abominations. They have filled it from end to end
It's
with
abominations
their
being
uncleanness.
So this is a
idols,
really
right?
important idea to understand.
Yes.
What Ezra is saying is this.
Probably.
These Israelites who
Local
stay
gods, probably.
are traitors. They're now unclean. Why? Because now they worship foreign gods. They're polytheistic. And as a result, we have to clean the land, okay? This is a fanatical understanding of Judaism. Okay, keep on going.
Therefore, do not give your daughters to their sons, neither take their daughters
At least
from
he
their sons,
admits
and never
that it's
seek their peace
fanatical.
or
That's true.
propriety, so that you may be strong and eat the good of the
Okay.
land and leave it for an inheritance to your children forever.
Okay, keep on going.
After all that has come upon us for our evil deeds and for our great guilt, seeing that you, our God, have punished us less than our iniquities deserved, and have given us such a remnant at this, shall we break your commandment again and intermarry with the people who practice these abominations? Would you not be angry with us until you destroy us without remnant or survivor? O Lord, God of Israel, you are just, for we have escaped as a remnant, as is now the case. Here we are before you in our guilt, though no one can face you because of this.
Okay, so now God's forgiven us. We've returned to Jerusalem. We can't do this again, okay? And how do we prove our loyalty to God? By making sure that we are pure, okay? We're not going to marry other religions. We're not going to marry other people. We're just going to marry within ourselves. So
I'm gonna make a guess. That's how exactly Israel sort of justifies no interfaith marriages, no interracial marriages as well.
In
Generally
the modern
speaking.
context.
In the
yeah,
modern
in
context.
the modern context.
Mhm. That's how they justify
Which,
it.
yeah. Now, I was gonna say we are at what because I'm just tracking ahead here. He kind of just like gets bogged down in scripture. I think there's like a around the 51-minute mark is about where we can probably stop. I don't know where we're at. Where are we at right now? We're at like 48. Yeah, let's go to 51.
Just skip there.
No. Let's go until 51 because then after that he's just
Yeah,
bogged
he's
down
just
in
talking about
scripture. There's
scripture.
not a whole lot there.
Basically, so not a whole lot. Okay, we'll just go
There's
to
not
51
much
then.
there. I checked it.
Okay.
Yep.
in his histories. When he talks about the Jewish people, okay, he says the Jewish people are known for two things. The first thing they're known for is giving some bath on Saturday. So they don't work on Saturday because that's their law. The second thing they're really known for is they don't marry outside their religion. Jewish women will refuse to marry foreign men. Okay? And so now we have the concept of
That's not true. Depends on like if they're on the like amount of like if they're practicing like Orthodox practicing religious Jews or say like cultural Jews. That's not true, right? There have been plenty of Jews that have married outside of the fucking religion. This is non-fucking sensical, right? It depends.
And they always have. Like, it's not. There was no like period.
I
where
mean,
they
no.
just exclusively did.
Well, that would be because they've had to, right?
Necessity.
It's out of necessity.
blood purity. That is new. So remember, it's really important for us to understand, but the Jews and the Israelites are not the same people, okay? In fact, what Ezra is doing is rejecting the Israelite heritage and establishing a new heritage based on blood purity and a monotheistic devotion to Yahweh. And this is new, okay? That's why I keep on saying this. The Jews of Persia are not the same as the Israelites of David. All right. So as you can see, from
again,
this
that's all narrative. It's
a lot of narrativization,
okay.
right?
Yeah, yeah. That's okay.
The Jews are in this area. And it's a very small part of the Levant, but it's a part of the Levant that's completely loyal to Persia. Okay, because you see everyone else as unclean, as the enemy. And if you're an empire, having Jews around are really good for you, right? All right. And so.
So okay, like.
What does he mean by that?
Yeah, like that's really fucking weird. Like, is he essentially saying that Jews are supposed to be the spear point to divide up all the other local kingdoms to make the Levant more easy to conquer? That's like the only thing that I'm like seeing that as. Like he's essentially saying that the exiled Jews from Babylon are being a weapon in order to make the Levant way easier to conquer, which I don't think that's exactly how that works. If anything, and I've mentioned this before, but a lot of instabilities have happened throughout Rome, for example, through a lot of Germanic tribe migration and Celtic tribe migration into Cisalpine Gaul. This has happened very, very often throughout the history of Rome, right? It's because of the fact that a bunch of people are all of a sudden moving into a sort of area or region and, broadly speaking, are hostile because they were also forced out of their fucking homes before. That's generally speaking how it works. Whether it be because of like poor harvests, maybe climate sort of reasons, another like larger force or tribe coming in to force another tribe out, so then they are forced to move down or whatever. This is tribal migrations that have happened throughout the entirety of history.
Yeah. Yeah, and so actually, I
Jews-
want to end on this. I want to sort of end on this map because I think he made his main point here, which is not correct because what he's saying is that this particular group of people, was favored by the Achaemenid Empire, whatever, the Persian empires or whatever empire was there. I think it was still the Achaemenids.
It would
at
be
this time.
Achaemenids at this time, I believe.
Yeah, the Achaemenids. So, it's like no. Again, what we saw in the Cyrus cylinder, the translation, it didn't specifically single out mention the Israelites or the Jewish people. It mentioned that all peoples of various worshiping different gods, you can go back home. Now, could there have been a separate edict specifically for that, where Ezra had led the exiled people home? Sure, but that wasn't on the cylinder, right? It wasn't on there, and we don't have any proof at this current time of anything found in present day Iran. Nothing has been found as far as like an official edict. So we're just relying on biblical narrative, which has been cobbled together over thousands of years
And is widely debated.
And yeah, again, like I said, a lot of it is sort of orally passed down narrative. Like it's like, okay, you tell your kids this is the reason why you do something. It's like a moral lesson rather than actual history.
Exactly.
So that's how I take it. That's how I always take, the Bible. It is sort of a metaphor and a moral lesson for your life.
Right.
The other thing I'd like to also say about Professor Jiang, more generally, let's zoom out a little bit. I've noticed this in a lot of his videos that we've watched together, and also I've watched a couple of my own. He seems to apply a lot of Western and modern geopolitics to ancient times, which is
that's
historically
really
irresponsible.
stupid.
If you're going to be teaching history, that's a
you don't faux. That's a big no.
Yeah.
Because technology, culture, politics, so much variation can affect the broader sort of decisions of a lot of these positions, generally speaking.
Yeah. And like you said, you mentioned earlier about like, okay, back then laying siege was like impossible, really hard to do until cannons and gunpowder were a thing, right? So once that happened, then all bets were off, right? Then
walled cities no longer became a thing. It became forts instead.
Exactly. So, to apply and also he's trying to imply that these people were a nation state. There was no nation state there was none of that back then. It was all sort of feudal, leaders, lords, and
very primitive, accumulatory sort of thing. Like some guy was had more resources than everyone else, and they just brought in more towns because they just had more resources in comparison.
Yeah, but then somebody else would fight him, and then over time, a different region or whatever would become more dominant or whatever. It just kept shifting over time.
Yeah, it would collapse, and then it would all split up again. This happens all the time.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't again, this whole model of predictive history where, he's essentially what I would call Jiang, I would call him, he's essentially talking like a British colonizer, sort of revising history to look like,
guess who did the same thing? Jordan Peterson.
Oh yeah,
he did the exact same fucking thing, which is why he is one to one, pretty much the exact same as Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, and this is the main problem in universities. Universities, right? They used to teach Western Civ as a course. Now they don't. I don't know if you noticed. A lot of universities don't teach Western Civ on its own. They teach world history now.
Yes.
Because if you just teach Western Civ, you get this.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just completely ignorant of a lot of the contexts that a lot of these sort of states, kingdoms, individual rulers, local sort of even bureaucrats or whatnot had as were basically thinking in terms of ideological predilections, culturally speaking, religiously, yada yada yada. It's what he's doing here is he's applying, like you said, modern contexts where it is completely just inapplicable. Like it's just like it doesn't make any sense.
So yeah, that's about all I had to say on this. There's really, I mean,
Yeah, I
everything
think we
else is just
we can wrap
delving
it
to
up here.
scripture.
I think
we have beaten the dead horse. Well, actually, no. There is a point. There is a slide toward the end. 1:05. If you could go there
1:05?
real quick. Yeah, this is where he gets into Pax Judaica.
Okay, I would like to see that then.
As biblical prophecy. I wanted to say 104, about just around there. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, let's just do that and finish up.
Over the next 10, 20 years, okay? And these are my, sorry. So these are my 3 predictions. First of all, they're going to build Jerusalem. Okay, they're going to build the third temple by destroying the
This is also specifically what Mehdi Hassan mentioned in his interview with Jiang. This bit right here. So this is important to go over.
They're going to do that sooner or later, okay? That's the first thing they're going to do. And you know why? Because when we read the Bible, you see how happy they were, okay? Because they felt completed. They felt as though God is with us, God has forgiven us, God loves us, okay? So building the third temple is crucial to the identity of Israel today, okay? So they're going to do this, and it's going to cause a lot of problems because, again, the Isaac Mosque is the third holiest site in the Islamic world.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Wait a minute. Here's the thing, though. I'm sure this is assuming a lot of things about Judaism, right? Because how many different sects of Judaism are there? How many different?
Oh, lots.
Yeah, some of them are more reformed, some of them are more pluralistic, others are very exclusionary, like Haredis are really, really exclusionary, ultra-Orthodox, right?
Kahanists.
Well, Kahanists, that's like a modern sort of political movement, but there's, I guess that's like the settlers or the, well, I call them terrorists because that's what they are.
Well, they are
anyways, they are. So anyways, because of that, like, to say that all Jewish people, their identity rests in rebuilding of the temple, a lot of them are going to disagree with you on that. And they'll also say that, well, maybe
Orthodox would have, I think, a lot of problems with that, right? I think.
Well, because their claim is that the modern state of Israel is a sort of it's like a false movement, basically. It's a false...
Oh, yeah, because they jumped too many steps ahead. It's like, bro, we haven't even rebuilt the temple. Like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah, and it's basically they recognize also that it's for imperialistic ambitions of the West and all that stuff. So, anyways, like that's why Haredis and Haredi Jews say this, and they're correct in saying that. And so So again, this is based on a very, very specific interpretation, and a lot of rabbis are going to have
they would have a lot of problems
with this.
Between Israel and the Islamic world, okay? Do they care? Not really. Okay, number 2, you can see how when the Jews returned, they were convinced that they were forced out of Jerusalem because they offended God, okay? So in other words, if Jews want to maintain control over Israel, they need to obey the laws of God, which means that they become a theocracy, okay? Now I'm not speaking to Israel.
Isn't that... Okay, no, that's not 100% accurate. I believe there's already, recently, they've been put in certain, like, religious courts, I think, right? This is an advent that has happened recently, right? Probably, I think, to appease more to the more fundy Christian type, not Christian types, but Jewish types within Israel. I think it's like...
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, it's like debt courts, basically. They've already, like, a lot of, like, differing theocratic sort of, like, mechanisms have already been put in within the legal system in Israel, like, right now.
Israel.
Oh yeah, I mean their democracy's falling away as we speak.
Oh, 1,000%.
Open, liberal, cosmopolitan, forward-looking place. Okay, I think that
not really.
Has,
that's a facade.
Guess what? That's gone. Okay, as Israel develops over time, it's become more and more of a theocracy, where the Bible is the law. Okay, and the third thing is that we can expect that as the Pax Judaica expands, more and more Jews will return to Israel. Look, the reality is this: if you look at the Middle East, Israel is the greatest power in the Middle East. There's no force in the Middle East that can prevent Israel from expanding, creating the Pax Judaica.
Well, apparently that's not really the case, because the Iranians would like to say, no, actually. I mean,
Saudi, UAE.
Yeah, the Saudis, and most of that has been facilitated by the United States of America through the Abraham Accords, right? And I mean, here's the thing: like, this was made several months before the war in Iran, right? At this point, so. We have to still mention that before, but even then, not really, because the Iranians would say, like, actually, we have something to say about that specifically, and that is a big no from us. even the Saudis, because the citizens of Saudi Arabia do not really like Israel whatsoever. Even they'd be like, I don't know about this one, chief.
Even Turkey is much more powerful. Just they're
the
probably
Turks,
the most powerful.
Oh,
Yeah,
they would.
Turkey
They
is definitely the most
in
powerful.
in a straight up conflict, the Israel will get fucking destroyed by the Turks.
Yeah, they
assuming
would-
no
yeah.
nuclear exchange. That's
No
the only that's the only thing that Israel has.
Which is their ambition. Okay.
Almost.
So this is just an introduction. But the thing I want you guys to remember is that, first of all, the Jewish identity, it is fluid, it's flexible, it's open. It was created by empire for the purpose of maintaining empire. Okay? And we're going to see this throughout history as well.
No.
Right?
That's not how that
No,
fucking works.
that's-
No, like
Nope.
no, he's conflating Zionism to like the shit from fucking Cyrus the Great. This is a conflation here.
So, was this clear to you guys? Are there any questions about today? Okay, yeah?
So how
Okay,
does the,
that's it, yeah,
the
okay.
conclusion-
Yeah,
So,
we don't care about
it-
the questions.
Anyways, yeah. In conclusion, it's
Yes,
and
that's a
again,
good
this
point
is
there,
sort
Armor
of-
Quills.
Yeah, so I would say in conclusion, I gotta go, but in conclusion, what I've found with this video, and I've seen this in a few of his videos, Jiang kind of positions himself as a leftist. He says, "Well, I'm against, all this stuff, and I'm for,
Yeah, I'm not a
you know,
materialist, right?
Yeah, or he'll say, "Well, I'm against I'm against Western imperialism and all this stuff." He's arguing in favor of it here.
Yes,
He's
absolutely.
totally arguing in favor of here. So, Professor Zhang fans, whatever you think of his anti-imperialist stance or whatever, he's not. He is promoting these things.
Yeah, he's
and
a
you can say,
crank.
well, he's not promoting it. He's just saying what it is. It's like, no. The more he says it, the more he's promoting it.
Like,
right,
he's
and he's
not-
not contesting.
Like
it in any
he
way.
has justified Pax Judaica, which is essentially, again, like I mentioned before, from Pax Romana. Pax Romana is the imperialistic slogan that the Roman Empire used themselves to essentially bring peace to the unwashed barbarian masses and fucking
Quote-unquote
hordes.
peace.
Yeah, quote unquote
Quote-unquote
peace. Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, so yeah, that's sort of my conclusion here. I didn't really have anything else. I think it's pretty cut and dried. So,
yeah, the history there,
Glad to
obviously.
dunk on him again.
Yeah, a lot of incorrect inaccuracies and constant conflations between modern contexts into historical, like, ancient times, which is, again, big faux pas. Well, not even a faux pas. It's just like that's just not history, man. Like, you're just describing like modern contexts in like a differing like historical sense, which is, again, you don't fucking do that. That's silly. That's not history. You're narrativizing.
Exactly. So yeah, I would just like to say, yeah, it was good to be on again.
Yeah, for sure.
And dunk on this misinformation peddler again, who is not a professor and not. I think he should be stripped of any teaching credentials he has. I believe he's a high school teacher.
I believe so
He
as
should be
well.
stripped of that immediately.
Uh,
For misleading millions of people. And yeah, my main concerns around him also, it's not just I'm not just jealous and attacking him as a bigger creator. He hops on every podcast mic. He has multi-million sub channels, and he's pushing misinfo.
So many
and
clips
it's not
channels.
helpful.
There's so many of them.
Oh my gosh. And he knows what he's doing with that. He clearly knows what he's doing on the algo front. And it's way too effective, and that's unfortunate. So just a little self promo here before I turn
Yeah,
it
go
for the
ahead.
night. So yeah, I'm Boy Meets Mini. Thanks for having me on again, Darumba. Really appreciate it.
For sure.
I also, on Sunday nights, I'm in Pacific time, so U.S. time Sunday nights, I do a thing called Critical Faith Theory. See what I did there? Critical
Real.
Race Theory. Nice meme.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Real.
did that. And what we do, we talk about not only Christianity, it's an interfaith space, and all faiths, even atheists, are welcome. And we talk about certain issues. I'm working on a series right now called Fast Food Faith. I was going to call it Met Christianity, but Met Christianity, that would have gotten me sued by, McDonald's. So I called it Fast Food Faith. And this is an example of Fast Food Faith. This is where, like, you can just narrativize and push, certain narrative and not get people to understand it properly and just push it as history. And people just take it as, this is the basis of Christian faith. So in America, like, a lot of religious belief is very sloppy, and it's not an
Yes.
actual sort of introspection of, okay, how do I become a better person in my life? How do I form better community? Things like that. I think that's where I have a lot of concerns as a Christian, as a religious person, and I do think that a lot of faith in America is just drive-through fast food type stuff. It's not.
Yes, it's very
it's-
surface
it's-
level. It doesn't scratch
Yes.
down further.
No, whereas back home in India, like, we're there is some of that problem there too, but there is more community effort, missions, giving back, and there's a lot more sort of there's a lot more emphasis on that, on helping those who are lesser than. So
I mean, look at the fucking Pope, right? The
love
current,
him. Yeah, he's great so far.
Yeah, he always goes. I mean, same thing with like Pope Francis, right? Like, always goes around, does missions, talks with people, because that's preaching the gospel. That's how it works, right?
Yep.
Renewing people's faith, perhaps even getting new people. Who knows, right? That's kind of how it's supposed to work. Evangelicals don't do that, right? It's all,
unfortunately, yeah,
it's all fire and brimstone, and since they are the only sort of like community centers that exist within those areas, and there's nothing else available, people will flock to them because
it's
all other
bottom of
options
the
have been taken
brainstem.
away.
Yeah, and it's also bottom of the brainstem, fear-based. It's also, like I said, it's fast food, sort of selling miracles and stuff like that. That's not what I want to do as a Christian. I just, it's more of a introspection on your life and growing as a person. That's how I see it more as. So,
For sure.
Yeah, but anyways, I was glad to be on. But yeah, do check that out. I'll give you the link to that YouTube channel, by the way, if you want to paste it in the description. But,
Yes,
that's
critical
something I'm
faith
growing.
theory. I believe that's the secondary channel you have.
Yeah. So I'm doing a 9-part series on that particular topic, like all aspects of like how this type of thing, manifests in society, politics, the suburbs, all kinds of stuff. So
For sure.
anyways, but yeah, great. Glad to be on. I'm going to turn in for the night. I'll tune in for the rest of the stream. So,
Yeah. You have a good one.
good
boys,
time, man.
For sure.
All right. Thanks.
Now to do, I suppose, my own sort of conclusion as well. Professor Jiang is, like has been consistently said over and over and over again, he graduated with a BA in history. His idea of using game theory in order to predict fucking history is stupid. Again, we're talking about an advanced mathematical theory that's essentially trying to be utilized in a context where it doesn't make any fucking sense. Very often he will conflate certain parts of history in contexts where it's just not applicable whatsoever, because in his mind it's all fucking gamified, because again, that is rather easy to fucking explain to a larger audience of mostly gamer bro types. That's the fucking point, right? And that's directly speaking a lot of the audience that he appeals to, as well as a bunch of like conspiratorial sort of like further right-wing sort of weirdos and stuff like that. And that's the main fucking problem with someone like Professor Jiang, who will pretty much parrot a bunch of narratives that do not have any pertinence to historical narrative whatsoever, and will very often take a lot of modern creations and sort of syncretize it to, well, attempt to syncretize it, or just apply it to contexts that are much further within the past, in which it makes basically zero sense to do as such. Through and through, complete grifter, similar to what Jordan Peterson would do consistently. Don't think there's really much else to say besides that.